one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody, welcome. Alice, can you do a roll call for us, please?
Yes, Corretto.
Here.
Marinowski. Here. Vandermeer.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Colorelli.
Here.
Campadona.
Here.
8 present, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Alice. We have a couple public hearings tonight, so I'm going to read and open up the first one. This public hearing is the Rama Annexation Agreement. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law to consider an annexation agreement known as the Rama Annexation Agreement. The property owned by Lockport Investments for property generally located north of 151st Street and west of I-355. This hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law and in compliance with the notice requirements of the Illinois law. This is to notify you that after this hearing, this annexation agreement may be modified before its execution. The city staff will now go over the provisions of the annexation agreement.
As you know, Mayor, we've talked kind of a lot about this project and also about the annexation agreement. This hearing is for the annexation agreement itself. They're proposing to, Lockport Investments proposing to annex 71 acres of property. About 61, 62 is going to be zoned limited manufacturing M1, and about 9 acres is going to be zoned residential. And when we talk about the Rama property, we just use kind of a common name that was the previous property owner of the property, because Lockport Investments has 2 or 3 agreements, and we try to differentiate them. So it's the same annexation agreement and property that we've been talking about. As we know, that they have come into the city. They're not going to develop it. They're just asking for a complement of property that they have acquired down through the years to finalize this piece of property with the remaining piece of properties that they own. They have agreed to, and we would require them to enter into, whoever owns this property, enter in what we call a plan unit development. It's a device where we have a better control over the specific parcels of property rather than just a general zoning ordinance that applies for all zoning, for instance, of M1 and R1. So the owner of the property will have to come with a plan unit development. And when a plan unit development comes, that's the time that there'll be a specific sketch plan of where the buildings are going to be, where the berm area is going to be, where the landscaping is going to be, and it also is going to define, areas where the floodplain is, or wetlands. They're going to have to define that when the PUD comes in. So there will be maybe several questions tonight about where's the floodplain at, where's the wetlands at. We haven't, they haven't, and we haven't got a firm delineation of that. We will when this plan unit development comes in. The annexation agreement attempts to address some of the concerns of the residents, which is essentially twofold. They wanted the area close to their subdivision essentially to be zoned R1, single family. The developer has agreed to do that, and the developer has also stated that there will be no common roadway in that R1 area through the property. The developer owns a lot of property to the north of this. So those are the two instances that are put directly in the annexation agreement. The other thing in the ordinance, the annexing ordinance and the rezoning ordinance, there are attachments at the request of an alderperson of some issues that some of the homeowners associations would like to see resolved. We can't resolve them, nor can this single development resolve some of the issues that were brought up by the homeowners association. That will be attached to the annexation ordinance. The other issue is there is going to be a letter that's presented and that was made part of the packet and will be attached by the mayor of city of Lockport, addressing the concerns that the homeowners have had, so that there's some knowledge of what has transpired in the last 2 or 3 months while we were talking about that. So that will also be put in the annexation agreement. The only 2 things that this annexation agreement that you had in your packet tonight differ from the annexation agreement that we talked about probably over a month ago at workshop. There was a concern by Alderman Smith about making sure that there's some specificity concerning the stockpiling of topsoil, and those provisions have been kind of made more specific and a little tighter. There is another amendment that I put in, which essentially says because there's 2 zoning uses with 1 parcel, one being limited manufacturing, the other one being R1, under the terms of an annexation agreement, if there were any amendments to the annexation agreement, all parties who own the property in the future would have to sign. Well, it could be that, one developer owns the manufacturing, one developer owns the residential. So that paragraph mainly says that you don't, if a provision of the annexation agreement does not affect specifically one use from the other use, the one use could amend the annexation agreement as it pertains to that property. Suppose somebody who owned the R1 property wanted to amend the annexation agreement, and the owner of the property of the M1 didn't. Under the annexation law, unless you amend the annexation, both parties would have to sign that. So that was just amended because of the different zoning uses. All the other terms of the annexation agreement provide safeguards. They got to have letters of credit. They've got to, obviously, when their development is approved, they got to follow the development code, which means that they have to have a signed statement from the engineer talking about floodplain and detention, and the fact that their rate of runoff cannot increase from what it is now. So that's
Okay.
all I have.
Thanks, Ron. If there's anybody here tonight who would like to speak in the audience, who wants to come up, now's your time.
If I may first, Mike Martin, attorney on behalf of the applicant. I'm at 15 West Jefferson, Joliet, Illinois. Just want to say that the zonings, if you recall, are consistent with the last 2 comprehensive plans, and they're also consistent with the I-355 corridor plans, both of them. So we're asking to zone the property as the village has planned. I also want to say I've been a lawyer since 1977, specializing in real estate. I've been a licensed real estate broker since 1978. This piece of property, once you annex it, completes kind of the piece of the puzzle for my clients. As you know, we own substantial acreage from 143rd Street to 151st Street along the north-south tollway east of this, and we also own most of the acreage that's west of this all the way out to Archer Avenue. So this puzzle is now completed with this piece, and we're now in a position to be able to market it. So you're not only, spurring the development of these 80 acres total, because we're rezoning 9 that's already in the city, but you're also allowing that acreage to develop, which we believe will bring substantial real estate taxes to all the taxi bodies, and because it's an M1 use, will eventually spur the economy with significant number of jobs. So we ask you to consider that when you consider the agreement. I also personally want to thank all of you for your consideration. My client thanks you for your consideration, and we ask for your support. Are there any questions?
Pretty good?
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Ed, did you want to speak? I had a card up here. You don't have to. If Ron addressed what you wanted to hear, that's fine, but by all means, don't hesitate to come up.
I would guess that that gentleman over there already answered the question. I was concerned, since I live right on the line and probably right next to the lowest part. It's about an 8-foot drop, and it's whenever there's a big rain, it's just a flood going out there. And there's actually crayfish that live out in there instead of gophers. And I was just gonna try to find out what they plan on doing, and I guess we have no plan right now, right? Is that
So-
correct?
That's correct.
This is just bringing all this stuff into the realm of the city. And then, like as Ron said earlier, you know, when the time comes to develop it, then we would look at the floodplains and all those questions would be addressed at that time, and we figure out how to make it work. So that's when that would happen. Ed.
Okay, and may I bring up another topic? I didn't put it on the card.
Does it relate to this?
It relates to when they decimated all the trees out there, and all the noise from the expressway is really bad, and I was wondering if there was any plans of putting up one of those noise barriers along their expressway.
As far as I know, Ed, there's no plans to do anything right now except get this annexed into the city.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with this then.
Yeah, and I don't know how that works in the future with IDOT. I mean, I see these things that go up along the tollways and other places, but I don't really have a good
Well,
answer.
350, the tollway has made their current policy is if the subdivision or development wasn't in place prior to the actual construction of the tollway, they're not building any further walls or protection from noise. Now, that may change in the future, but that's the current policy of the Illinois Tollway.
Now, a few years ago, there was a lot of tree barriers that absorbed a lot of that, but they stripped all them trees down, and now you could see the cars going back and forth, and you could certainly hear them, especially when the wind's coming from the southeast, which it normally comes.
And the city's aware of that because in the annexation agreement, I failed to mention, but there's a provision that they won't cut down any, further trees
And there's
on the
hardly
property.
any more left. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? You don't have to have a card. Yeah, come on up. Just say your name.
Hi, doing Larry Cunat from Creekside Estates, 15015 Hillside Drive. I just wanted to reiterate, if I could, some of the things that we had talked about earlier with Mr. Bellotta that was here at the last meeting about the annexation and how it could potentially affect the people within the residential area. I happen to be one of them that lives there. You have to keep in mind, and I know Alderman Darren last time kind of poo-pooed the information that I had given him in regards to property value decreasing. And I want to cite a specific example, Darren, and really for the rest of the board, just to keep this in mind going forward as this is unfolding. The property values in Crest Hill, I happened to have conversation last week with one of the aldermen of the 4th Ward, Tom Inman. And Tom Inman lives in one of the communities that is just adjacent to two of the truck terminals for Old Dominion and Dayton Truck Line that has been erected in the last 24 months. And Tom had expressed to me his concern that if a truck terminal, and I don't know if it's going to be a truck terminal that's going to be going in the annexation by us, but his concern, and he shared it with me, was that the trucks, the pollution, the noise, the lighting, the traffic, it's a huge disturbance to the residents that are in Caroline, and it happens to be a retirement community there. He did say that a lot of the properties that, when they did build the truck terminals, did go up for sale. Some people did buy there, didn't realize that the truck terminals were going to be such a nuisance. The lighting is going into the back of everybody's homes that are facing the truck terminals. It's a huge concern of ours. It truly is. The safety is an issue for the children of the area that attend Oak Prairie Junior High School there. The bus traffic that goes through there, along with the truck traffic that is evidently going to be coming, whether it's a truck terminal or not, because it is industrial, you're going to have an enormous amount of truck traffic through there. The other thing, and maybe from a selfish perspective that I want to reiterate, is really the quality of life that we have after a manufacturing district is going to be erected back there is going to be nowhere near the quality of life that we have today. And I'm all for the city growing from tax revenues from businesses that do come into the city. I'm all for that. However, if it's at the expense of the residents that currently reside there and pay a pretty fair amount of money for taxes, I don't think it's fair to run on our shirt tails and just put any type of manufacturing back there. Last meeting that we had, Alderman Darren did speak about an example that he gave of Burr Ridge.
No, that
You
wasn't,
said
that
Burr
wasn't,
Ridge
that wasn't
did
me.
have, or one of the aldermen did have an example of Burr Ridge, stating that there was a community built around Case International. At that particular point, not a lot of facts were given, because facts were not really researched about the comments that were given about Burr Ridge. Fact of the matter is, Burr Ridge has strict limitations on protecting or buffering the residential area. If you look at the Burr Ridge website, and I do encourage you to do that before any real plans are made here, you can see that they are protecting the residents of Burr Ridge. And they do have large restrictions for the protection of the residents. And if you look at the manufacturing business that is there in International Case, it's all enclosed. There aren't any 24-hour trucks coming in and out of the facility. All the manufacturing is done inside. The noise is being buffered by the walls, by the ceilings, by it all being encased. So the neighbors that are in that general area do not feel the effects. And specifically, if you look inside that subdivision there, that subdivision is designed to look very much similar to how the residential area looks. It's very beautified. Most of the areas back there, Bank Financial has their corporate office back there. Cadillus Law Firm has their office back there. There's a lot of companies that have their firms back there. It's not a manufacturing district. So to come out and say that it's a manufacturing district and Burr Ridge is okay with this, in my opinion, is demagoguery. It's got no place in this forum. Again, I want to reiterate, the people that live there at Creekside Estates do have a concern. I encourage you, and I think you have a fiduciary responsibility to us people that live there, that have built there since 2004, to do also what's in our best interest. I'm not asking you to tip the scales completely in our favor. I'm asking you to do what's right and to do what's balanced for the people that are already residing there. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. And I think you put it well, Larry. I mean, like with Burr Ridge, there's things that you can do to help make things work. And so that's what our job is. The day comes when somebody wants to develop it. It's our job and the planning department's job to find ways to make whatever goes in there work. Sometimes it won't work. And, we've said no to things in the past up here, but, if we can make something happen and everyone's happy, then, and look, I'll tell you one thing. In the 17 months I've been here, I don't care what happens. When the Culvers went in, the guy who lived behind there went bananas, right? Everybody goes bananas about something. And so, because we're just not used to something that's new. So, but we work together to find the best way to make everyone happy as best we can. So your concerns are absolutely noted, and thank you for coming up here and sharing those things. And that's what we do as citizens, right? Come up here and share our thoughts, concerns, and make sure we look at after the best for our investments and our homes. So thanks for sharing it, Larry.
Mayor, can I add a comment?
Yeah.
So I think your point is well taken, and when developments are proposed, those are all very important. I'll just give one example, because 16 months ago I was out there, and I'm not a building professional, but in the subdivision I live in, which is Cedar Ridge, my house doesn't border it, but it is in my subdivision. There's a little strip behind us, Prime Boulevard. There was a medical building that was planned to go there and a small manufacturing industrial area. The status of both of them are now up in the air, but I'll tell you, when people first heard that there was going to be a small manufacturing behind, so happens that this company was going to relocate from Burr Ridge, I got some complaints, and I didn't blame anybody. However, after going through the process, working with our building department, they got light studies done, they had noise studies done, they had visibility sites done. I walked back with some of the residents and looked at what it was going to look like from their property. By the time it was all said and done, every resident thought it was a good fit, and frankly, they said, hey, I know what's going to be there right now, and I know that it's not going to really, a couple of them probably would rather not see it, but it was a couple hundred yards away, and I know it's not going to really impact my day-to-day in a negative way. And frankly, everybody, by the time I was done, ended up supporting it. Now, again, I don't know if either of those buildings will be built just based on other happenstance, but again, being in your seat 16 months ago, now being up here, the level of diligence that goes in behind our building department is something that surprised me, at least, and impressed me. And so I do think that if buildings are going to be put there, all your points are very valid. But rest assured that we do have a department that is really looking out for the best interests of the residents as well.
That's what we do.
I'd just like to make a comment. This whole annexation benefits the residents
of all the people of Lockport and Creekside Estates. The reason why that is because the city of Lockport now has oversight via the PUD process for the development of the property. We can see right now what happens when we don't have a piece of property that's annexed into the city of Lockport, but it's wholly surrounded by the city of Lockport, going on right now on Briggs Street, in between the Lago Vista subdivision and the Newberry Ridge subdivision. It is an unincorporated Lockport Township, just like this piece of property is. What they are putting there right now appears to be a horse farm. Now, a horse farm is not an allowed use of any property within the city of Lockport, but this property is not in the city of Lockport. We had no say. Now, I don't know if Denise or Bob or Jason have received emails and phone calls, but I have. The concern is that another rodeo is going to go in there. And another rodeo could go in there.
No.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because I've done.
Okay.
I've been.
I did not know that.
Talking to lots
However,
of people and finding out, no,
that is
they
the
can't just
concern.
do that.
And so when people say to me, well, can't you do something? My answer is no, it's not in the city of Lockport. We have no say. So the alternative is this property does not get annexed in the city of Lockport. And we have no say. And neither will the residents of Creekside Estates. And they could go ahead and develop it any way they darn well please, as long as it meets the county requirements. So I understand the concerns, but your concerns are protected by the annexation agreement. They are not protected by not annexing this property into the city of Lockport.
I just have one comment on, I made the comment on Burr Ridge. When that plant was built, that was before the merger of IH and Case. That plant's been there for a long time. There was a lot of very nice houses, and a lot of very well-known families that lived literally across the street from it. It didn't look like it does now. I love the way it looks now. I mean, that is what a modern development should look like. But my point is that, you know, there are a lot of cities that coexist with business and industry, and we have to find some way to do that. I mean, if we're just going to be a community of residents, then we're going to have very high taxes. So we have to try to strike that balance to see if we can get business in to help offset those taxes. We have a lot of taxing bodies in Lockport, and the city of Lockport's portion of that tax isn't as large as some others. But it helps everybody in that aspect. So, and we do have parts in the other part of town. And in my area, I mean, we have the west side, which is a heavy industrial area. As I mentioned before, the mayor has semis that go right by his front door. So, I mean, we all have to live with something. But in all of the developments that we've done, we've always taken that into consideration with sound barriers and that kind of stuff. So it's not a thing that anybody wants to force anything on anybody. We want to work with everybody and get it so that it's a better community for everybody. And for the record, in the discussions Chris and I have had with the residents, they've acknowledged all along they understand, and Larry said it again tonight, that it enriches a community when you have diverse kinds of development, the industrial, the light office, the residential, the commercial, that is good for a community. So they understand that, they believe it, and they've said it several times here publicly. I think their concern is, you know, if we were to take this property and it were blank of any kind of zoning, and you could start from scratch and start zoning it in the way that you'd like, no competent urban developer would place office manufacturing right next to residential. If you're starting from scratch, it wouldn't be the ideal. And so the residents understand that we're kind of put in a trick box with the previous zoning as it exists from generations ago. So they understand the reality
Their position is they're trying to mitigate this as best way possible by making it very public and reminding us and asking us to keep this on the fronts of our minds, their concerns, so that when it does move to PUD, and they acknowledge all the things you've said, they're all true about having control, and that's really important for the city to have that. But they just want us not to forget them. Make sure they're notified, all the things that the city does to make sure that they're aware and this isn't a surprise, and they can play a part in offering their insight as we consider whatever the future PUD is going to be. So they've been very reasonable throughout this whole process. They're tried and true lovers of Lockport, and I think, as I said in the last meeting, not only our Lockport residents, but those who live in the unincorporated areas have to be considered as we move forward with the planning. That's all that they ask.
I believe in brevity, so I concur with what Alderman Colorado said. But I just want to say, Larry, and the other residents as well, you don't need to apologize for being concerned with your quality of life. We all moved to Lockport because we like the area, and we have kids here. We want to continue to live here. So we appreciate that you've been so involved in the process and bringing to light the perspective where you're coming from, because we need to be reminded of the different perspectives as well. So it's good that you're here. It's good that you're expressing your concerns. And trust me, as long as I'm here, as long as Alderman Colarelli is here and everybody else up here, we are going to keep your concerns in mind when and if any development does move forward here. So thank you again.
And I would just like to say to Larry and Ed that your association did send a letter requesting certain items be reviewed and to look into when development should come before us, and that letter has been put as part of this paperwork so that no matter who's up here when this issue does come up, those requests and considerations will also be part of the record for everybody to see. But of course, you'll be keeping an eye on that too and coming back when that happens.
It was actually a different association, so.
That was Creekside South. It's
Oh, it was Creekside?
Yeah, South, the North Group. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, anybody else? Okay. There being no one else that desires to be heard, then I call this hearing to a close. All right, we have another public hearing. This one's an amendment to the Narnia annexation agreement. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law to consider an annexation agreement known as the First Amendment to the Narnia annexation agreement for approximately 52 acres of property whose common address is 1650 West 135th, Lamont, Illinois. This hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law and in compliance with the notice requirements of Illinois law. This is to notify you that after this hearing, the First Amendment to the annexation agreement may be modified before its execution. Staff will now go over the provisions of the First Amendment to the annexation agreement.
Well, essentially, Narnia is on 135th Street by Lamont. It's about 52 acres of property. It is a former house that has been turned into a banquet facility. It was annexed to the city of Lockport in 2009. And at the time it was annexed to the city of Lockport, it had a special use in the county to conduct its business as a banquet facility. There was a little debate whether the county considered a tent that Narnia had to be a accessory structure or a permanent structure. And so that was one of the decisions that Narnia had in coming to the city of Lockport. With that special use permit in the county, there was about 8 or 9 special restrictions. One, such restrictions as there was a limitation on when music could be played. There was a limitation on the number of parking. And one of the limitations was that this special use permit applied only to the applicant itself. And therefore, if the applicant was going to sell the property, the special use permit wouldn't apply. The owners of the Narnia property are choosing to sell the property to a buyer that actually lives in the area where Narnia is. As a matter of fact, on that little private road leading up to Narnia, he owns residents there, so he's well aware of the neighbors and their concerns. So the only thing he wishes to change is the fact that he wants the ability to buy it and sell it in the future. So all the other special use restrictions that were tied by the county and by the city shall remain in force. So that's the only amendment to the Narnia agreement.
Okay. Anyone in the audience need to speak about it? Good evening.
I'm Joel Zimmerman, 18400 Maple Creek Drive, Tinley Park. I'm the attorney for the Bonafide Family Limited Partnership. We were the applicants for the amendment to the special use. I don't know if there would be any discussion, but I'm certainly welcome to answer any questions if there were any. I don't know that I can stick around later when you get into your discussion, so I was planning to address anything at this point.
Sure. No, I'm sure we'll have it all out now. Anybody in the audience have any words? Anyone up here on council? No. Well, there you go. You had an easy night. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, there being no one else that desires to be heard, then I call this hearing to a close. All right. All right, so moving along here. Ben, what do you got going on tonight?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. We have the Volts Building Development Agreement and potential sale. As you're aware, earlier this year, the city purchased the Volts Building for approximately $250,000 this spring, and we spent about $50,000 in stabilization efforts, mitigating environmentals, stabilizing the building from the weather. And so the building's in a state now that it can be sold. We do have a buyer that David Mead and his architect Bob Morris will join us this evening to talk about their proposal and present their offer. This offer does not seek TIF funds, even though it is in a TIF district, nor does it seek sales tax incentives nor real estate tax abatements. This would be simply a cash transaction. It's in the memo, as it does show that it's a $10 current offer. However, the stipulation is that the developer will need to spend over $1 million in rehabilitation efforts, in which we find this to be a suitable trade to get a great new anchor in our downtown. To protect the city's initial investments, we have an agreement that does ensure certain dates and projects get completed. David and Bob are going to present their concept this evening, and because it's in a TIF, we have to take this kind of offer as a first bid. We will also seek other bids. We'll have this offer on file here at the city before October 29th.
And it's the 30th, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, do we move to the 30th? Okay, October 30th. And then if receiving this offer is the best offer, we will bring it back to your consideration and approval on November 5th. So with that, maybe I could ask the petitioner.
Could I ask one quick
Sure.
question of you, Ben? So they have to spend $1 million by when?
Well, they don't, I don't want to say they have to spend $1 million, but as they go through their project and explain to you what they plan to do for the building, the anticipated budgets will exceed $1 million. And we do have the agreement stating that they need to fix the outside by a certain date. They need to bring in their proposal and their building permits by a certain date. They will need to complete the restaurant and the second floor meeting space by a certain date. And then ultimately, the last thing would be the apartments by a certain date.
Oh, okay. Now, on building permits and stuff, who picks that up?
We are waiving that in this instance, if you're talking about the cost that we would receive for building permits from the petitioner.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. Anybody else before they come up? David?
I'm David Mead at 5449 Brookbank Road in Downers Grove, Illinois.
Bob Morris at 432 East 14th Street, Lockport, Illinois.
Just want to thank everyone for their time. I've talked to numerous members throughout the last 6 or 7 months since I found out about the old Dreams building, which is going to be renovated and change the name there. The Volts building is kind of the anchor for downtown Lockport, and Mad Hunt LLC. We're actually very excited to be a part of the growth and development of Lockport. The renovation of the downtown area to bring back, I guess, it's back to its heyday. I was actually walking around in the Lincoln Landing today before I came here, and reading all of the little plaques about Abraham Lincoln as he walked through, as he made his impact throughout Illinois, and what a part he played in Lockport. And it just kind of struck me today is like, we're hoping to bring back that rejuvenation to the area. And part of that is going to be the State Street anchor right there. So 933 State Street, we're planning as a large restaurant with a meeting space above or banquet facility. That's going to be the main business of it. We're planning 6 apartments roughly at this time. We just was talking earlier about whether or not we're going to do 6 or 5, depending if we want to make them bigger, more luxury apartments. That has yet to be determined as we kind of go through the process, but the plans that we have submitted here show it with the 6 apartments, just so everyone is aware of that. I just don't want to be locked into, say, 6, when we may eliminate one of the studios and make it into another 2-bedroom, depending on what the need is for the area. We're also planning on adding a second restaurant and restaurant martini high-end complement to like tall grass and things like that on the lower level, which will be just briefly introduced on this, because that's the second phase, I guess, of this production. Bob here has got some slideshows and some handouts for you here. We can if his mouse works. And he's going to do some talking because he knows his slide presentation just a hair better than me.
Okay. Mayor, City Council, staff, thank you very much for having us here, and I appreciate all of the work that you've done to help just revive this building and just the impact that that's going to have on downtown. And I also would like to say that working with David has been a really good experience. I appreciate that we've got a developer here that's willing to not just bring the building back into function, but to restore it to back of the glory. He's got an appreciation for the history of Lockport, an appreciation for the history of the building, and it's more than just putting a business in the building. He wants to restore the building back to the character that it had back when it was built in 1890. So we'd just like to share some of the plans that we've got for the building. These are still they're relatively refined, but they're not fixed yet. There's still some things that are going to be changed. We've been talking about some other changes, just modifications to make the plan work better. But this is a illustration of the first ground floor plan. It's primarily a restaurant. There's a bar on the northern half of the building. You can see we've got the kitchen back where the kitchen was originally, formerly when it was the Dreams property, but it's going to be a totally new, the walls of that kitchen have already been removed, so we're going to be rebuilding a new kitchen area back there, and it's going to be all new kitchen equipment, all new exhaust fans, things like that. So,
The concept of the restaurant, though, which I've talked to several members previously about this, but I just want to explain is I know Lockport's got a lack of higher quality restaurants in the downtown area. I don't know how to put it nicer. The public landing is really nice. Tall grass obviously is exceptional.
Mama Nesta's.
Mama Nesta's is really nice, but you're running out of places to go after you hit a couple of places. Our concept for this is going to be like exposed brick. We've got the brick walls, and it's absolutely a gorgeous building. It's historic. We want to tie that in with our design concept. We're not going to be, just like the Denny's or not that there's anything wrong with the Grand Slam or something like that, but we're trying to go into a higher scale to bring a notch higher. A segment that's missing in the area is someplace where a person could bring a family, sit down and have a meal, and be comfortable while you're having that meal, and your kids are not going to be, or you're not embarrassed to bring your kids, because most of the places or a lot of the places in this town are like little just taverns and pubs, and you can, and I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. We want someplace that's family-friendly. It's going to be a little more modern with the exposed beam ceilings. We want to do a combination. It's going to have some TVs and stuff just for, Bears games, and hopefully the Cubs will make it. Sorry, I know you guys are South Side, but the Cubs make it to the World Series ever, which is maybe a long time from now, but you can watch some watch some games on the TV. We also want to intersperse. One of my favorite things when I visit restaurants, and I've seen this in Chicago, and I'm also from California, is local artists bring artwork, and they hang artwork on the walls and stuff, and it creates a venue for local artists to present their work, whether or not it's, put their phone number if you want to buy it, whatever. We're just going to let them showcase it in between the TVs. Make it a little higher end, a place with a more of a, not going to be an extravagant menu like tall grass or anything. I don't think we need more of that. What we need is a nice place where you can sit down and have a meal and enjoy some time with your family, or come after work, or bring a date. So that's kind of what the concept of the restaurant is. And then I'll let Bob just take over from the rest of this here.
Some of the other elements that we're looking, you see, if you look at your monitors, you should see a stair right in the front vestibule door there. That would be a stair that would go up to the meeting banquet facility up on the second floor. That may move around a little bit. There's other, right behind that, a large element there that we're envisioning some kind of a fireplace, large feature fireplace that would be kind of a heart of the whole place. Anything else about the first floor? Okay. Up on the second floor, this is where we're talking about the banquet meeting space. It's a banquet facility, would seat about 150 people. It's got its own separate bar, own toilet rooms, restrooms, things like that. The kitchen is probably not going to be there. That'll probably be storage for tables and things like that, so we can do multiple types of functions on the second floor. You do see that there's a one-bedroom apartment there that would serve as an apartment office for David and his staff to just have an on-site presence to kind of watch over all the operations of the building. And then up on the third floor, this is further down the road, the restaurant being the first, banquet facilities, and then up on the third floor, it's divided up into, it's shown here, 5 apartments, 1 studio, 3 one-bedroom apartments, and 1 two-bedroom apartment. Let's see, just looking back on it, there's going to be laundry facilities within each of the units. Each unit's got its own furnace. They're nicer than the average apartments. There's going to be on-site parking for all the apartments. And then there's that elevator in the back of the building that gets the people from the parking in the back of the building up to their apartment. Down in the lower level in the basement, that's a lot of the support facilities for the whole building. The support facilities for the kitchen, deliveries, storage, food prep, and then ultimately somewhere down the line, he'd like to do a very high-end martini bar or something like that on that lower level. And then there would be other support facilities, kitchens and stuff for that. This is a shot of what the building looked like. It's probably late 1890s. It could be very early 1900s. And it's maybe a little bit hard to see in the image. Let's see, you know what? This isn't in your pack. This is the photo that's in your packet. The previous photo was I liked it because it was a photograph probably within the first 10 years of when the building was built. This building, just based on the cars, you can tell it's probably somewhere around 1914, 1915. And you can see the cornice that was originally on the top of the building. It was called the Ward's Block. It had 1890 up in the very top of the building. It's very nice cornice work. You can see the storefront used to run all the way up to the stone band there. And the windows on the second and third floor look very much like what they do today. This is a shot of what the building looks like today. It's lost a lot of that charm and character and richness that it had back in 1890. And this is a shot of what we're proposing to do with it, minus the Model Ts. That's just a reference to the
Unless you have
reference-
one, you can drive by as much as you want.
So, but we've, looked very intensely at as many of the historic photographs that we could find of the building, and we are trying to, as accurately as we can with contemporary products, restore that cornice to back what it used to be in 1890. The windows, it's restoring it back to the type of window frame storefronts that would have been typical of that period, modifying it a little bit just to coincide with the building functions that we want to put in place. New canopy, and then again, working with the city, all the new windows that go around the whole building. You also notice that on the south side of the building, currently there's a metal stair that's kind of scary to walk up and down. That's being removed.
And it's kind of scary to drive the State Street and see it on the side of the building, too.
So that's the East State Street elevation. This is an image of the south and the west elevation as it looks currently. And this is an image of what we're proposing to do. Again, you can see that the stair on the south side of the building is being removed. The area over the garage in the back, let's see, I can use this. This area here is being rebuilt in a format that more harmoniously fits in with the rest of the building, taking some of the brickwork from the elevator and tying that in. And then there'll be an all-new stair on the outside of the building that replaces that exterior metal stair on the south side of the building. Let's see. I think that pretty much covers it.
Well, one last thing, which is further down the road also, which we didn't develop pictures or anything for at this point, but we are anticipating doing some type of patio with enclosed parking underneath. After the restaurant's up and running, we'd like to incorporate that view of the river, turn that into a large outdoor seating area that people can actually, I don't think there's really hardly any place in town now where you can actually sit outside on a nice summer day or any time of the year you want to, if you want to. But, so that's gonna be part of that that's gonna come out there.
Yeah. You can see on the back here, there's two doors indicated there. Those would be doors that would exit out onto that future exterior patio. So the patio, this line here is the floor line of where the restaurant, first floor restaurant would be. The patio would then extend back over top of the parking below. So the parking at that point is still on the ground level behind the building. It's just now provided with a roof created by the patio.
Which is kind of nice for the residents. They each have their own individualized parking space. It gives them a little more privacy too, just for their, safety. They can pull in, park their car, and come in, enter the building as residents, and then, customers to the restaurant can just enter through the back or through the front of the building.
And the elevator will be functional?
Yeah, the elevator will be functional.
Replaced?
The cab itself, hopefully it does, if it's still functional, great. We have to schedule a guy to come in and take a look at that. We are not replacing the tower.
Right. No, just the cab. It was kind of nasty.
We couldn't even get it open the last time I was through there, so.
You don't know what you'll find in there.
I think it's probably flooded out after the fire, but.
Bodies are.
How many parking spots behind the building for the residents do you think will be created?
We can create 8 spots according to the plans that were previously submitted to the city. I don't exactly remember when the plans were. The previous owners had commissioned someone to draw some plans for an exterior patio, and that, if I remember correctly, created 8 or 9 parking spots.
Okay.
Excuse me, in the historic district, because, obviously those buildings don't have parking spots, we do have public parking, and it's taken into effect. So the parking, across the railroad counts as parking for all the tenants throughout downtown Lockport.
So the zoning ordinance has no requirement for parking for businesses in the downtown business historic district. So we're providing parking,
Yeah.
just mostly, primarily for the benefit of the apartment, well, is to make the apartments more.
No, I view it as a positive. You know, you have the parking spots for the people living in those apartments, and that way they're not taking up parking spots for your customers.
Right, and/or they're not searching for a place when they want to
Correct.
go home from work, and
Mhm.
they have to drive around looking for a parking spot.
Very nice.
It would annoy me, and I just try to think forward.
How many apartments were in that building before the fire? There were a ton, weren't there? 28?
28? Wow.
28 apartments.
2 floors.
On 2 floors. And I just wanted the residents to get an idea of what an improvement this
Were
would
they
be.
apartments or hotel rooms?
I'm not familiar with it. I think that it used to be a
Yeah,
hotel.
that's what right.
They were,
Apartments that they converted, and they all shared bathrooms or something. It's,
yeah.
They call it European.
hostile.
Actually, I think the state fire marshal called it something else, but.
There was a common bath, shower in the center, and so the apartments were,
It's the dorm.
I mean, if you can just imagine, I mean, you saw what the apartments look like here. These are nice-sized apartments. They're a little bit bigger than your average apartment, depending on what neighborhood, community you're in. But these are nice-sized apartments. But, and if you divide this up into 14 units on each floor, you're living in a shoebox. So it wasn't, what we had there before was probably not something that,
it's not for the future growth of the town.
anyway.
Now, I had read in the material that we were first given that you were considering a rooftop patio. Are you changing your plan now to build a lower?
I know what you're referring to, and one of the attorneys put rooftop, but it was supposed to be parking top or something. They put the wrong word in. The rooftop, I think that would create more hassles for the downtown, honestly. I think it would be amazing.
Yeah, that's
To
what I
think about
thought.
us being able to go way up like that.
Yeah.
But then I think, again, thinking forward, a couple of beers and somebody thinks it's funny to throw a bottle over the side, or something like that, it just creates probably more headaches than I want to deal with.
Okay.
Let alone that anybody here wants to deal with.
I
So,
should-
yeah, the original wording was supposed to be the raised parking structure with a
Okay.
raised patio, not rooftop, and that was supposed to be crossed off after my meeting with Ron, but that probably fell through the filter or something.
Well, that
think
depends
of legal stuff,
depends
and
on
I'm
when
looking
your
at
meeting
that.
was and when the,
Should point out that over top of the kitchen area, that's a roof on the second floor. We are proposing a deck up on top of that roof, primarily for the benefit of the apartment people. It's
So
not
commer-
for the use of the
not
restaurant.
public, it would be private use for the residents of the building. Like someplace where they can do some barbecuing and things like that,
Right.
just so it just creates another luxury item to add to the downtown area. And it overlooks the river or the canal and the bike path, and it's beautiful scenery.
For event space, we are going to allow the use of the Commerce Street lot behind the building, so if anyone was wondering, where would they all park?
Anybody else? How would they do that with, I know when I lived in the McDonald building, there was a large controversy over parking, and because the residents were using the Hamilton Street lot, and then permits at one point were going to be
Well,
charged. Did we resolve
oddly
that?
enough, there's still permits at the Hamilton Street parking lot. Also, but I don't believe I don't think they're ticketing the Commerce Street parking lot, because the theory was that there is a parking lot that doesn't cost any tenant downtown that is available to parking. Now, I don't know how the lot is faring now, but
Well, the McDonald building didn't have that access to that Commerce Street lot.
yes, they did.
Well, but they were told that it was private property, so they couldn't park on it.
Well, that's changed, because it is public
Right.
parking, yeah.
So, to tell you the truth, I just like to see this work for them, because if you have the party, you gotta get that resolved early, so.
Well, the Norton parking lot there's a lot of spaces there.
Yeah.
I think you'll be fine.
Can they park overnight?
Yeah, and it's not, and the Hamilton Street parking lot has kind of got off this, but we one time had special parking permits for people parking at night versus people.
I know, I attended the meetings.
The reality, I mean, if you just envision what the building was before with 28 units, going down to 6 units, the number of people that are going to be in the restaurant are probably going to be comparable to what were in the building before when it was Dreams.
Hopefully
So-
better, hopefully
Right.
more.
Yeah. So, I mean, it worked. It brought a lot of life and vitality to downtown. It brought a lot of business to some of the neighboring businesses. I know, just talking to some of the neighboring businesses, when Dreams, when the fire happened at Dreams and that business ended, a lot of the neighboring businesses saw a decline in their business because of the clients that Dreams brought. And as I see it, David just plans on bringing probably a level of clientele that is more likely to do more shopping and more business in our downtown than probably what Dreams did.
Well, I mean, a rising tide raises all boats, but one brief question, nothing serious, but you're showing gaming on the first floor. If it's a high-end restaurant, does that mix with that, or?
It's enclosed so that you cannot see it from any aspect, but it is a restaurant and bar. And
Oh,
since
okay.
most restaurants or bars in the area do offer it, I don't want my clients to leave to go, if they want to go do some gaming. So it's an enclosed area that is not visible anywhere except from the people sitting at the bar.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
So it's, you're not, if you're sitting in the dining area with your kids, that's completely out of sight.
Okay.
It's a floor-to-wall ceiling, or floor-to-ceiling wall that's encapsulating that whole little gaming area. But I don't want to lose traffic from somebody who's like, hey, yeah, we just had a nice meal, let's go across the street to someplace else and have some drinks there because we can put $10 in a machine or something.
Can I ask about the timeline? Because I know that there are safeguards sort of in place in case, the building doesn't get done or you don't follow what you've agreed to. But now I see, when I can see that you plan to have the exterior work done by 2016, when do you hope to have the restaurant open itself?
I cannot put myself into any position because that's in the attorneys are all discussing.
Okay.
And, I can go, and unfortunately, or
Well,
fortunately
I
for
just want to know how it's
attorneys.
going to fit in with a timeline.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately for attorneys, the city wants some security, and with the security comes a concern that, if there's timelines, what happens if those timelines are missed? So an attorney for the city says, well, we've got to have some security. So some of the timelines are extended in the agreement. Hopefully, they won't occur, but if you want to go through the timelines and we can explain why we did what we did, I think, we'll see why they might be a little squeamish about just, having what they think will be a timeline and what will be a timeline if they don't make it and what they will be penalized to do. So,
Well, my concern is when does that 60-month period begin?
Yeah.
That's what,
if
can
you want,
explain
if
that.
you want,
That's my
I can
concern.
go through this agreement and I'll do it as simply as possible and as quickly as possible.
That's in 2 years.
Ron, let me, why don't,
I mean, that's.
so Ron doesn't have to talk about himself in the third person. Let me try to chime in.
That'd be better.
Attorney for the city would be Ron.
Yeah.
Ron and David's attorney and I have been working with David quite a bit. And we, the city, our only concern was in this investment because of the price and sale of the building, that we wanted certain assurances that this project was going to proceed and get to completion. So having done that, we talked about letters of credit and lines of credit and holding funds in escrow. And what we ultimately agreed upon was a personal cash guarantee from David up to $300,000, basically our investment in the property at this point today. And so when you put a personal guarantee on someone, David, I think if you talk to him, would tell you that he plans to go for permits right away, get this thing going. But when $300,000 hard cash of an individual is on the line, they're going to want to hedge that bet a little bit and make sure that they have more time to proceed to get things completed. So the dates that I can give you is that we've agreed that they need to pull permits by July 2015. Now, my guess is David will be working with Bob just as soon as this is approved, and they may be coming in as early as January or February for permits, but because there's certain restrictions on income and expenses involved, he wants to make sure he gets more time for that. Same thing with the exterior to be built by November of 2016. My guess is the exterior will be built long before that, but because there is a component and penalty if he does not get it completed by that date, he wanted to stretch that out a little bit. Same thing on completing the restaurant and the meeting space. You know, currently that's set at November of 2017. My guess is David will be up and operational long before November of 2017, but again, because there's $300,000 of earnest money on the line, he wants to make sure if he runs into delays of some sort, that he doesn't have to worry about paying the city money back for completion dates. So the whole project with the apartments and everything would be to be completed by November of 2018. That sounds like a long time, but my guess is you'll start seeing some activity on the outside as early as even this fall and next spring. And that was just a way we could structure it that gave the city some reassurances on investments, and it also gave David some reassurances that we'll have some time to complete the project at his, discretion and costs.
Ron, being the aforementioned attorney for the city.
Yeah.
When we say that we're getting a personal guarantee, how do you back that up? I mean, were they,
Well, we have retained the firm of Kane McKenna, and they've looked into the equity of the three members who will be partners in this LLC. And he believes that they
wouldn't it
have
just be simpler to have a letter of credit?
Well, the letter of credit, we talked about that, and there sometimes letter of credit is okay. I mean, but if we have a personal guarantee, to me, it's sufficient.
But Ben, you mentioned earnest money. Doesn't that mean we have the money?
No, we won't be holding it in escrow, so I apologize for that term. We talked about the line of credit, and we talked about a potential escrow account that was shared. The ultimate decision we made was to go with the personal guarantee.
We also talked about a first mortgage, but we felt that the personal guarantee, because, LLCs have probably not very much equity in them, we requested a personal guarantee.
Well, heaven forbid, everybody would love to see this project go, but heaven forbid he defaults on that, then we're out.
Well, let me explain one thing.
Okay.
First of all, from 2008 to 2014, this building lay dormant. Secondly, anybody who is going to attempt to finance this building and with a major purpose of having a restaurant will never get a bank loan. So there has to be
Gotta go SPC.
that has to be a private investor. These members have agreed to put up that personal equity, i.e. cash, to construct the building. The building is estimated to be constructed at $1.4 million. They then will, once the building goes well, hopefully, for 3 or 4 years, they will try to get a loan at that period of time. That's a very difficult and serious investment for this building.
Well,
let me finish. And what is
I'll
the
give you
city?
background on that.
What are the requirements the city is going to have? They want to have the ownership of the building in order for them to do that. How is the city going to be protected? First of all, before we give them the deed to the property, they have to verify once again that they've signed a warranty, verify once again that they have adequate equity in their funds, in their accounts, 1.4. Secondly, they already have to go through the permitting process. They have to have building permits issued by the city of Lockport by July 15th of 2015, okay? So they've got the building permits, they've got to pay the architectural fees, they've got to have the contracts done. When they close, they will sign a personal guarantee. That personal guarantee will be on them until the 2 times. One is the time that the exterior is completed of the building, and the second time is when the restaurant will be completed along with the banquet facilities. If they don't do those, if they don't pay or construct the exterior of the building within that period of time, we have the ability to charge them $5,000 a month for 12 months as a penalty, liquidated damages, because they didn't do that. If they don't have the restaurant completed within that period of time, was it 2 years, Ben? If they don't get it done in 2 years, they forfeit $240,000. So if they don't get all this done in 2 years, they lose $300,000, okay? All right?
One quick question, though. I
Sure.
got to interrupt you here. If, again, heaven forbid, I mean, we go and say, okay, you forfeit your 300 grand. Problem is, we're going to him to get the 300 grand, whereas if you have a letter of credit, we're going to a bank that
Well,
has
there's
the
three
300.
other, there's 2 or 3 other personal
I
guarantees.
understand, but what if they default?
Well, who owns the building then, Ron? Put it that way.
They still own the building, but if they default, when the building is complete, we will have the building completed.
Are all of the principals in this country?
Yes.
Okay.
And a line of credit also carries an expense with it, so
I
in
know,
this way.
my
Okay.
former business partner, he passed away, built the country house in Geneva. It's right across from the Kane County Cougars. And that was his third successful restaurant. He still had to put up his house. And he got an SBA loan. It was for a lot of money. It was for more than this. And he also had to have letters of credit. So, I mean, they wouldn't take, even though he had 2 successful restaurants, they wouldn't take a personal guarantee. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And, I mean, in Geneva, it has pretty tough codes and pretty tough restrictions. He got it built. And it's a beautiful restaurant. I mean, they all are, but
But he also had a track record.
but if they, he did have a track record that went back 30 years, but the thing was, though, is that if he defaulted, they wouldn't go to him, who might have hard feelings. They would go to the bank, who has no feelings at all in this, and say, well, he defaulted.
I don't care about anybody's feelings. All
I understand, but if they don't pay, if they default, then what happens?
Then we have
We take the
a
building.
personal guarantee on 3 individuals, actually.
It's still not a letter of credit, though.
That's correct.
And, I mean, there's still a chance of default. I mean, I'm not saying that these guys, I've talked to these guys, and when they told me about their project. I
Yes,
thought-
but the fact is, by the time, if there's any default, they will have assurances at the closing that they have the money to construct it.
Okay.
And the other thing to remember, when I pushed to buy this building, because that was one of the priorities I had, was to do something with this. It was an eyesore, and it's been killing the downtown. I was just gonna buy it and put windows in it, and just make it something that looked clean, so that it would stop being an anchor, a visual anchor on the downtown. So at least people could come through here and say, oh, there's a burned out building. They wouldn't have to say that anymore. Say, well, this looks like a nice building. I wonder what's in there. It doesn't seem to be open right now. I think, having David came forward, almost right out of the gate and says, I've been wanting to do this project for a long time, now's my opportunity. To me, it's just been a blessing. I mean, as we move forward and get this facade cleaned up and get it so that it's not, a visual, albatross around the neck of the downtown, to me, that was worth it to begin with. Having it move forward within a restaurant and going forward with these projects, to me, is, I mean, David, I've had numerous conversations, we've talked many times, and David gets it. He's got the passion that's necessary for doing these kind of projects in the downtown. And so, yes, the letter of credit between him, his brother, and the one other entity, I mean, it's not, that's why we had Rich Lickey do this stuff. We had an outside firm go in and make sure the financials are set up. We didn't do it ourselves. We make sure that we have the consultant that we always go to, give us the consultancy that says, yeah, this is good.
One other reason I bring it up is because the guys that originally did the Target Home Depot deal that fell through, they lost their houses. I mean, they had a real incentive there to get that deal done. It failed. But we had, their bank had something there. That's all I'm saying. I mean, God, I want this thing to succeed. I mean, it's in the second ward. So I have an interest to make sure the second ward looks great.
So, but, I mean, let me understand, your concern is, unless David has his house up for this, that you feel like
My
it's not
concern
gonna get done.
is that what happens if, that's all.
The building's still gonna be there, and the building's gonna then, by then, have a decent facade on it and not look like crap. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's a win.
But if he owns the building, what happens then?
Well, I mean, what do we do if we, you know, it goes so far and he owns the building? Are we any worse off than when Nick owned it? At least now it has windows and facade that looks cleaned up and stops being a drag.
I understand, but then we had to buy it from Nick for for a
Right,
quarter
but it
million
looked
bucks.
like crap at the time, and it was killing the downtown.
Okay.
So now we've taken some proactive steps. It's the first time I've seen anybody do a proactive step in this council for a decade, it seems like. We're finally moving forward on something. I
Well-
have talked with Dave a number of times. Like I said, he gets it. And so I'm gonna move forward with this deal, man. I understand your concerns. I tried to put him out there.
It's better to talk it out now than have people come up later on and say, hey, why'd you do this, or why'd you do that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And that's why we had Rich Schlicky go out there and, you know, go out and get the personal guarantees, you know, from these guys who are putting their heart into this project. You know, with the personal guarantee, why don't you explain the personal guarantee? What does that mean, Ron?
Well, they're personally liable for any, if they default, they're liable up to $300,000 from their personal.
Could they go bankrupt out of that?
No. They go bankrupt over that.
Not with their
I would defer that to Mr. Rishlicki. I would say no.
I thought the only thing you couldn't go bankrupt out of was student loans.
No, you're talking about bankruptcy if they lose $1.4 million. I'm saying no.
But would we get our money? That's the only thing. I mean, most of the time in those deals, the creditor gets 10 cents on the dollar. I
Well,
mean,
that's
and
that's
yes,
why
we
he's
would-
looked
we would
into
have a
his
great
equity.
building If we get control of the building back again, that's all.
Well,
Can we build that into the thing? that if-
well, let's talk about that, okay?
Okay.
Let's talk about that. And, you know, suppose there is a default. Suppose we have to get 300,000. We've got, then, and something happens with the building, we've got a contract to enforce that the new owner of the building is gonna have to come back to develop this, so we still have that ability to do it. And the hope is, and it's not a hope, we try to build safeguards in that the building will be, at least on the exterior, completed, and most likely there'll be a restaurant in there. And the building inside will be renovated. Now, is that better than what we had? Yes. I still say at the outset, and Barbara Schlicky couldn't make it tonight, but there is nobody that necessarily is going to put 100% equity in this building.
No, and I'm not saying that.
No, but
I
but
actually
I
just don't
guess
want to.
nobody except they are.
I understand, and again, I'm for this project.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
But the deal is that it's I guess I just don't want to end up, you know, the city to end up like we have with Nick, who was not really interested in doing anything with the building, or as little as he could, in my opinion.
Who's this?
The previous owner.
Well, and the previous owner, his offer was rejected by the city, which was essentially, give me $500,000 and give me all the taxes and sales tax rebate for 23 years of this special
I
assessment.
understand, it was a lousy deal.
Yeah, okay.
So, all right.
So I'm not,
Well, if you're comfortable and-
you make a good point. I'm not saying that's a bad point. It's just the problem, not the problem, but is with the difficulty of procuring financing for this building.
That's why I say, better to ask it now, than people don't
Sure,
come back
no,
later and
I don't
start
have any
rumors
problem with those.
and all
Those are-
kinds of
Those are good
accusations
questions,
later
and that's why it took us a couple weeks to negotiate this.
It's not like we haven't working through this for, you know, a long time. I mean,
But this is our first.
Yeah, that's
I
no,
get it. That's-
Yeah, that's all.
and, you know, Ben and I and
Comfortable.
their attorney spent many hours talking about this.
I know exactly how many hours, because
So after all this discussion, I know we've heard a lot of worst-case scenario situations here. We're very excited about the fact that you're coming to the city of Lockport, and this is going to be an incredible asset, is going to increase the quality of life in the downtown. So we thank you for approaching us and offering your dream for the building, no pun intended, and we're looking forward to what it's going to become in the future.
I'd like to add a little, I mean, if you're concerned about the timeframe, the drawings for the exterior renovation of the building are being submitted to, well, no, they were submitted to Heritage and Architecture 2 weeks ago, and it's going to be up for review by H&A tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So
Things are
nobody's
moving
dragging
along.
their feet right now. Things are moving.
I can tell you that David
Boom,
is.
boom, boom.
Address, I think Denise's first question is, how long is this whole thing gonna take? And when I first started this in 6-7 months ago, when I first found out about this, and I've got some ties to the Lockport area, and I found out about this, and I talked to my investors, and we were like, this is exactly what we wanna do. We wanna get into a building that's a little more, got more character, not a strip mall, something or other. You know, it's got some flavor to it. It's right in the heart of downtown here. Well, we started 6-7 months ago. I didn't know this process was gonna take this long. Typically, we go in and we buy a property, and you buy it, you put it, 30 days later, you're moving on. Now, we're just coming up to the voting and all this. To answer your question, though, now it's gonna be winter. Building costs go up in the winter. We are not gonna start really probably anything until the spring, because I'm not gonna pay an extra 25 or 30% just for the construction costs, because the building's already costing, you know, as the number that was thrown out there. That's a lot of money. We're not gonna increase that by starting.
That's not my concern. My concern is the 60-month time frame. I want to know, when does it start, since you're not really,
At closing,
And
July
that's-
1st, July 15th of next year, and then within
Okay.
30 days, they've got to submit a,
okay, so it's
Preliminary
not
plan.
until the closing, which is going to be around July of next year.
Or sooner.
probably could be pushed up, you know.
That's the deadline.
That's
No, it is
Done
gonna be.
before July.
Oh, okay.
That's the latest.
We're hoping it's in this.
We
All
said
right,
we needed.
but at least now I know
Yeah.
the start of the time frame is.
Right.
All right.
So July 15th, that's when, you know, he can close earlier. We just put a latter date, the latest date that he could
Right,
close.
and the thing with the 60 months is, at the end of that time, you have sole oversee
Those are
of the
not
biddle.
like timeframes for me to finish certain things, I believe.
Oh, no, no.
Those are penalty, yeah.
Those are penalty timelines where.
Well, they're also it's also the time frame in which the city still has, be able to put their little patty fingers in
I
what
thought
you're,
that was forever.
what you're doing. You know, as far as the way I read it, after
Well,
5 years, it's really,
Right, and.
really yours, that you could sell it, you know, anybody that wanted to do
At some
things with
point-
it would have to
at
come
some
back to
point,
us, but,
After spending the amount of
Yeah.
money that we're putting into this building to renovate it, at some point, it really does have to revert back to us.
And quite frankly, the reason we picked 5 years, because 5 years, if they were, you know, built out with a restaurant and the apartments, they would probably have paid back in property taxes and sales taxes, and video gaming, the $300,000 that the city put into it, buying it. So that was the theory. That's how we got 5 years, is that, you know, we want to ensure that it's going to be built, and we were going to get at least $300,000 out of it, the amount of money that we put in it.
David, you mentioned that you buy a building and get going right away within 30 days. Sounds like you have experience purchasing buildings and renovating.
Yeah, me and my partners, we've had a couple of businesses, and we do typically residential. We started a company where we purchase foreclosures. And that's similar to what this building is, except you guys bought it before we did. And so what we do is we typically go in, buy a foreclosure, renovate it, turn it around, fix it up, and these are typically more in higher-end areas. Deerfield in Illinois, we have several properties. We're doing a lot of stuff in San Jose and the Bay Area in California right now. We're branching into the commercial side. We're actually working on developing a hotel right now in wine country. We're actually doing this whole process, beginning stages for some property in Sonoma County to build a luxury boutique hotel. So we've been doing this for the last 7 or 8 years now. Time slips by, so I kind of lose track of the years. So, you know, like, for us to go in, and we typically just turn around, you purchase something, we don't have to go through all these submittals and planning and
Okay.
approval processes. We just move along, and either we'll sometimes we sell, or sometimes we just hold the property.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. That gives me an idea of the caliber of an investor you are.
Yeah, and after that luxury boutique hotel takes off in Sonoma, maybe you can bring one to 355 and 159th Street.
Yeah,
All that model.
Absolutely.
You're coming in right there,
Yeah,
too.
it'd be a nice place for it, I think, right there.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, David.
All right. And yet, David, once again,
I have a question,
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Mead. You know, since this project stimulates the, I would say, local economy, you might say, because of the amount of work going on to this in the future, bringing some money in and that, looks like, you know, obviously quite a bit of work. Do you bring in your own contractors? Do you have contractors? Are you going to be working with local here
All
within the
local.
community? Okay.
It's probably 90% local. The contractor that we've working with right now is a Lockport resident.
Okay.
And basically his whole crew, I think, lives
Wow.
probably in the whole area here.
Okay. That's quite impressive. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
There are some union things which I have no control where they bring the workers in. though,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, you know, David and I have been talking about this for 6 months, and I know it's frustrating. You know, it's been important to me to make sure that, you know, we had the right investor. And so, you know, I've had a lot of questions and concerns over the time, and trying to understand what kind of restaurant we wanted to put in there, make sure it was going to complement the downtown, and making sure the look was going to be right. And so I appreciate your patience, David, on all of that. But like I said, after, you know, working together with David now, he's the guy who gets it. And so I'm looking forward to, I mean, he gets the downtown and what we are and who we are. So I look forward to moving forward on this finally, man.
Should be a great partnership. I remember when I first met David, I think he was so eager, he was planning to try to get this building and
By
have it open
Christmas.
by this holiday season. So that's how eager he was to get going. And I think I
That's
told
not
him,
gonna happen
I think I told him that day that, hey, if we get this thing sold to you by the holidays, I think we're doing good. So we're on track. We're doing well. Yeah, good luck.
I mean it, good luck.
Thank you very much.
As we said, you know, the time to entertain alternate bids is October 30th. We plan to bring this to the council at the first council meeting in November.
Good job. All right. Hey, it's our new finance director. Dun-dun-dun.
Right out of the gate.
As exciting as this.
Can we take a
Oh,
brief
just
break
wait.
before we head into the budget?
Yeah, sure. Why don't we take just 5 minutes here?
Oh, thank you.
Just for a second. Lisa can get herself composed.
Fun example of saying one thing, but maybe another. I don't fully support you, but the ringer in this question of it.
Great. All right, Lisa Heglin, our new finance director, is going to talk about the budget with us.
I just wanted to start by going back through the time frame of what we have coming up. So today we were just presenting just an overview of the budget. On October 20th, there's going to be a notification inside the paper letting everybody know about the public hearing. The public hearing is actually on November 19th, and we also are going to have the levy presentation at that point. On December 3rd is where we're looking for the council to approve the budget. And then the levy will be on December 17th. So we have a little bit of time here. This is just an initial, trying to go through with you guys some of the different changes and the different things that we have inside the budget. So there's a budget summary chart in front of you by fund, and it shows that we have budgeted almost $37 million of revenue and about $44 million of expense. The majority of the funds we have are showing a deficit, okay? And that is because with the capital improvement plan, the city is looking to use some of its reserves, to draw down its reserves, to go ahead and fund the capital project. So the general fund, there's gonna be $1 million drawdown. The motor fuel tax is about $500,000. Jumping down to the capital projects, there's almost $2 million of a drawdown. And in the water and sewer fund, almost $4 million, to give a total of $7.5 million that we're gonna draw down to fund our capital improvement projects. The general fund revenues and expenditures. Property taxes make up the largest share of the general fund revenues. The city's portion of the tax bill is only 9%. So the county, the schools, the township, the fire protection district make up the rest of it, but the city's only 9%. Of that, though, our real estate taxes are 41% of our revenues. Sales tax is 23%, and income tax is 18%, and then there's some other minor licenses and fees and fines on that side. For the expenditures, the biggest portion of our expenditures are the police, no surprise there. Then comes public works and administration. The general fund would be balanced if it wasn't for our contribution to the capital projects plan. So $1.2 million is going to the capital fund to fund our projects for the year. That's going to leave us with an ending fund balance of about 7 months of operating expenses. Our policy is to have 4 months. So we're going to do this for a couple of years to be able to get through our capital project plan. And then the city is also going to contribute the actuarial suggested amount to the pension plan, to the police pension plan. So you'll see that that expense did go up quite a bit from the last year to this year, and that is based on what the actuarial is telling us that we need to fund that police pension plan. Motor fuel tax fund. So we're drawing down $500,000 to complete some additional projects through the year. The revenues that come into MFT are the motor fuel tax allotments and some interest income. And the expenditures are mostly for infrastructure, but it's also for salt, to fund the salt for the city. So the reason why we're showing a drawdown in the MFT fund is because we need a local match for some federal grants. And this is the best place to be able to get that local match. The bond sinking fund, this is a fund that the city uses to pay the debt, and it allows the city to have the ability to complete larger projects up front and then pay for them over several years. The revenues that come into the bond sinking fund are real estate taxes, interest income, and transfers from other funds. We have 3 bonds that we're going to be paying on this year. In the 2009 GEO bond, that's going to be the final payment. In 2015, yay. 2012 alternative revenue bonds, and in the 2014 general obligation bonds. So those are the 3 bonds we'll be paying on. The garbage fund. So the city's garbage operations are provided by Waste Management. The revenues we get from the utility bills, we charge a monthly amount to all the residents, and the expenditures go directly to Waste Management. There's a small increase every November that gets built in through that contract, and that contract is in effect until October of 2018. The TIF fund. So the TIF fund is the downtown and the Star Business Park development. The revenues come from property taxes and interest income. There's just a really small amount of revenue coming into this fund right now, and it's because of the falling property values and also within the lack of growth within the business park. So we have some expenses budgeted there, but not much until we really see those revenues picking up. There won't be a lot of activity coming out of this fund, because if that never develops, the general fund will have to repay this amount. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here in this fund. Capital Projects Fund. This is used to budget for the capital outlay and projects for the governmental activities. The revenues that fund these activities: non-home rule sales tax, vehicle stickers, annexation, utility tax, grants, contributions, and transfers from the general fund. We're going to talk about the expenses here in a few minutes. Water and sewer revenue expense, 98% is funded by the user fees. And the expenses are split between 60% for operational and debt, and then 40% for capital projects. Some of the highlights from the water and sewer funds: this is a balanced fund. It is required by state statute to be a balanced fund. This is not a fund that could go into a deficit. It has to be able to have the user fees fund itself. We are transferring $257,000 to fund the capital projects, and there's also a loan back from 2008 that the water fund is paying back to the general fund. So in the capital portion of the water and sewer fund, we're going to draw down $3.7 million in this fund to use for capital projects. We have a lot going on. $6.1 million of projects, engineering and consultant fees here, and approximately $1.8 million in debt payments. We have some low interest loans to the EPA.
Can you speak up just a touch?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, Ben's going to talk about this next section.
I'll talk louder, Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to thank Lisa, because she's only been on board for a couple of weeks, and she spent an awful lot of time on this and with staff. So her first day, I think we met with 4 departments. So we were really running on a timeline here, so I thank her for the efforts. I wanted to talk about a few of the other general fund operating expenses. We did sit through a lot of two-by-two meetings with the council last year with the stub budget and projected some of the 2015 expenses. And I just wanted to highlight most of any changes that may have been proposed or made since we had those talks. Under bricks and mortar, the facade grant program is still 50-50. We had increased that to a $40,000 funding level, and that could be that could be 4 $10,000 applicants. That could be any mix of other smaller applicants, just because the funding is there, doesn't necessarily it all gets used. We are also would like to develop and implement a code compliance grant. And that would also operate much like the facade grant program. We haven't drawn up those rules and guidelines yet, but we want to budget for it. This was actually one of the suggestions from Alderman Deskin, and Pam is going to work with me and the council in developing what those guidelines are going to be and how we're going to implement this program. But we think it's a good idea to try to get the town up to code, especially in regards to alarms, fire alarms, and sprinklers. Also, in regards to bricks and mortar, we have the Central Square facility. There's a lot going on with Central Square. The roof is in disrepair. We're going to have to partner with the other governing bodies here to put in the additional funding. And we usually put in about $80,000 a year to participate. It could be an additional $80,000 or $90,000 for us to help facilitate the fix of the roof. We also have expenses for this room that I budgeted to replace the carpet, redo the walls, a partition back there for LCTV so they have a little more privacy and protection for the equipment. So those projects are under the Central Square line item for bricks and mortar. Consultants are going up a little bit in 2015. One of those things is the special census. Do we want to take a look at the population numbers and find out if home rule is something we want to try to go for? Before we would ever apply for something like that, we want to make sure we have proper population counts to sustain something like that. A human resource audit, what that interprets to is having, much like we did with an IT audit, we have a human resource official come in. There's many companies out there we could utilize to take a look at how we handle human resources, workers' comp issues, and make recommendations and help us maybe form a job description for an HR person. You'll see an increase in consultants for attorneys and some miscellaneous consultants with legal fees. We have the 2015 contract negotiations will be coming up for MAP and 150. The events, we have a lot of Central Square festivities with the car show and farmers markets, events in the community, the Lockport Art Series, the Canal Days, the Roxy, things of that nature. So all those are in here. One of the things that I proposed in dealing with the Main Street group was additional wayfinding signage. So requesting an additional $10,000 in the budget for some additional signs that you see here. You'll see many of these signs up on the light poles. The $10,000 would go for several more of those, and then one additional sign that you see here on your screen that is a larger sign that would be placed over by the new train station. The city actually owns a lot on the corner of 13th and State where the new light's going in, and there's an old sign there that's in bad shape, and it even talks about the music conservatory that was once there, so we need to replace that. And then I just want to talk a little bit about the employee overview. We've had some conversations about staff and staff levels. There's a slide here that talks and shows about our employee counts. At our peak in 2009, we had over 113 full-time equivalents. With the recommendations of staff this year for 2015, we would be at 106 employees equivalents. So this is still 6% below the levels from 2009. We've got the pie chart on where they are. Again, the police are the largest, public works and engineering about 19%, water and sewer at 21%. Also, if you can look closely, the proposed new hires, we changed the color on the end just to see what they were by department, so you can kind of see the impact of where those are and who those are. Those requested personnel that we're talking about right now one is under the administration for an HR generalist. Now, I've had some conversations with some of the aldermen about what an HR generalist would do. I use that term generalist fairly loosely. It may not ultimately end up being an HR generalist. I think it would also depend on the results from our HR audit and what they're recommending and how we function with some of our HR. I budgeted for half of a year for a position at $65,000 a year for salary. We may be able to hire someone for as low as 45, but I figured I needed to budget for the worst case scenario as far as the budget was concerned. But we would want to bring this audit and any decisions back to the council in regards to this. So this isn't something that would just happen or we would pick somebody to hire. I would want to get council consent to proceed on that. We've got an additional engineering aide part-time for under 1,000 hours being requested to help with the observation. We always get a lot of questions about what's going on with projects and capital, and there's a lot going on. And having another person available in the engineering department to help us oversee projects and keep things on time, I think is important. Public Works, we've got a request for 3 seasonal laborers, all part-time, no benefits, all under 1,000 hours. Typically, the point of this is to have these workers be available at a lower pay rate to work on lower level projects, freeing up more trained, skilled labor, union labor to go work on things like the EAB and the Emerald Ash Borer. So we felt it was a reasonable request. And then we're just going to kind of go through some of the capital purchases and our outlay. We've got, again, you'll see this if this slide looks familiar at the top, it's because we are in the process of trying to add some implementation to the payment window at City Hall here and increase some safety measures. There's some other additional security measures we want to do with some doors and locks in the building. So we budgeted another $10,000 this year. We had $10,000 in the budget this year, and we haven't spent much of it yet, and I'm working with a consultant to help us probably spend some of it this year still. There's also a request. We had the original discussions in regards to a new financial accounting software. This is ballparked at about $400,000. That's a large potential cost.
What's the name of that company?
Well, we haven't picked one yet. This would go through an RFP when we would talk about accounting software.
That's a lot of dough.
It's a lot of money.
I don't think we need to spend it.
Well, this will be something that we will obviously need to debate. I talked to Lisa when she came on. This was something that her predecessor wanted in the budget and was making a case to be done. We talked about whether we should push it off to 2016. She agreed that it was worth at least discussing and trying to budget for it in 2015, and we can have those discussions as we go forward.
I mean, does that kind of software help us? Does it create efficiencies or savings for the?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, the software that we have, we can't do a whole lot with reporting and analytics within the software. Everything has to be pulled out, and then you're rekeying all the information into Excel.
Oh.
And so it's a lot of duplicate entry. The entire budget was done in Excel, and financial statements and everything's all done in Excel. The system just doesn't have much. It's a very low end. The
Yeah.
software that we have is very low end.
It's Excel? That's what we're running our budgets
Everything
on?
is running
So-
through Excel, yes.
Wow.
So fixed assets are all being managed through Excel.
It's horrible.
All the benefits for the employees are being managed through, outside of the system. So the limitations are so great within the system that we have. If you want to do any type of analysis between years, you can't, because all you can look at is 1 year at a time. So if you want to look at what happened in a prior year, you have to exit out of the system, pick a different fiscal year, and look at it through that fiscal year, and then export that data out, and then try in Excel to analyze what's happened over multiple years. So the system is pretty basic, and I understand when the town was much smaller, it was probably sufficient for us, but I do think that we're outgrowing it.
So-
We've been on the system for 10 years now. It's
Yeah.
fully appreciated within the next year. So, there's a life to this as there is with any piece of truck or equipment that you have. There's a life cycle for it, and we're nearing our end, and if it's not in this year, it's going to be pretty soon.
So let me ask you something. That's a big number, it's true. But is part of that number the transferring of the data into it? Like,
Implementation, yes.
so-
When I looked at, Eric did get a quote from one of the companies, and the name of that company was New World. But that's just one, so we'll have to go back and look at, and
I'd like to review them as you look at them, because I have a little bit of experience in this and with other companies, with companies that I deal with, and I mean, we're talking fund accounting software. And, which is a limited market, because for the audience, business uses what's called accrual software, and government uses what's called fund accounting software. So But I'm just saying the cost of 400 grand, I mean, that's more than we paid for the Volts building. And,
Yeah, but, so that's my question though, like, all that data that's in those archaic software programs has to be moved to the new software, right?
You determine how many years of information you want to bring over. With your payroll, there's certain, qualifications of what you have to bring over. General ledger, you usually bring over maybe 2 years, 3 years of history. You don't bring everything over, so that you cut loose at some point and start.
I understand amounts of data. My company has 6 terabytes of data, so which kind of dwarfs the city. So I understand data, and I understand data transfers also, and a lot of these softwares, and, I'll stipulate to the fact of Excel, that the migration's pretty easy. It's not that hard, so.
So the software itself, from what I could see in one of the bids, which was the basis for the cost that was implemented here, was about half of it was the actual cost of the software, and the other half was implementation. So the
Sure.
implementation costs were.
Well, I just want to take a look at it. I mean, if it's,
Yeah, something of this magnitude, we would certainly, create an RFP, bring the case forward to the council to make these decisions, and talk about the synergy of softwares, because certain one of them can help us with the police department and do synergy with them. We can go to, e-tickets and not have so much paperwork and create other efficiencies that help fund this. Our current software doesn't allow us to use regular billing, number 10 envelopes for billing and have messaging on there. We're still on a postcard
but still,
system.
our goal is to generate enough benefit to cover that 400
Agreed,
Gs.
absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, we do struggle to get some of the reports that even I look for on an operational side of things from the current, software, so,
I
and,
don't see that in the budget.
It's in there.
Where?
I highlighted it.
Did you?
Yeah,
I don't see 400,000.
It's in, for sure.
It's not under administration
I think it's
expenses?
administrative capital.
It's in Fund 14, page 25 of the budget. Capital administration.
Administrative capital.
$410,000. 10,000 for the payment window update and 400,000 for the new software. Certainly, we're not gonna go to the highest product that's out there. We want something that fits for our city.
Well, what I do is because, I've seen this city go from very rudimentary proprietary software through Windows, through everything else. And what I'd say is, before you go out and buy software, ask other cities what they're using, and ask other cities our size what they're using, and ask them what their actual cost were.
I mean, we can't forget that this is a proposed budget number. All of
Correct.
that work,
I
and due
understand
diligence
that.
is gonna be done when we actually bring the
I
software.
understand that, but we're gonna pass this budget in, when?
Yeah.
On December.
December 3rd.
December 3rd.
Correct. So, that is gonna take a little bit of time, and I'd like to work with you on it, that's all.
Does that belong in capital projects?
Yes,
Capitalized
that's something
software.
that has to be capitalized, so that is not something that will hit your, you have to depreciate that over a number of years as you do your equipment. So software is something that is depreciated as a capitalizable item. So where I came from, in my previous job, we just went through this whole process. So I had met with a number of companies, and I know that the company that was selected by them is not the company that I would select here. It's a much higher end for a much larger city, so I know that the costs that, they incurred are way greater than what we would have here. So, the company, New World, was one of the companies that we did look at, and I did like them very much. They just weren't robust enough for the city that I was coming from. So, but yes, absolutely, we can talk about this some more, and,
That'd be great.
and really analyze whether this is the right thing for us. This, this
So-
is something that I inherited. They were discussing this before I got here, but as soon as I spent some time in the software, after my second day, I thought, oh my, now I know why they've been putting it in. Because it's a lot of work to get that information out of that system.
So how does the decision get made on that? I've shared my view on this, right? I've been through a few different financial software conversions, and it's never gone well. It's never gone on budget, and I'm all for efficiency, and we should be trying to make our operations more efficient. But there's no hard savings to the taxpayer here, and I think I kind of stated in my email that I think this is important, and it's something that would be really good to have. However, there are plenty of residents who can point to a city infrastructure that they would rather spend $400,000 spent on before financial software, and ultimately, those are everybody's customers. I could maybe be convinced to put it on. I'm, as you guys both know, I'm leaning towards, this not being the best use of funds, but how do we make that decision, right? There's different opinions, whether it's 400,000, whether it's 300,000, obviously, this is a budget, and that's not what we'll end up paying in the long run. You know, it could be more or less by the time we got actual quotes. But how do we actually make the decision whether this stays in the budget or not?
Well, it would be kind of the debate and dialogue between us and the council between now and December 3rd, if it stays in the 2015 budget. We could also look at, if you look at potential costs, you know, half of it is the purchase, half of it is implementation. You could break it up over 2 different financial periods. I don't think it's the best idea. I think to do it all at once is probably the best, but we could have that as a deliberation. And ultimately, I think it's a decision that we're going to have to migrate to at some point. It's a 10-year-old software. If you think about your computers at home and if they're 10 years old and what software you're operating on right now, it's probably not what you'd want to be on. And so at some point, if it's not now, it's when. And my guess is if I brought each one of those different vendors in here, they would tell you the longer you wait, the more expensive it may be. So
They all
we could
say
bring
that.
them
I
in.
don't know if
Well,
I buy
that's
that.
why they're salespeople.
They all say that.
So,
Usually it's the other way around.
yeah, well, it's all debatable. It's all
If I was in you
discussion.
guys' chair, I'd be asking for it too.
Right.
I'm not trying to disparage that at
Sure.
all. But I mean,
And then it could be in the budget and we still have those deliberations. And just because it's in the budget doesn't mean it gets spent. I mean, the worst case scenario, it rolls over into fund balance and you use it for
It-
something
it is
else
a
another
fund.
day. But it is a fund. So, but
That's an inside accounting.
this is our first presentation of it, so it's on the table and.
yeah, no,
it's up
and that's
for-
why I'm asking how we
Sure.
go about. And you know, I have one
We can
opinion.
put, we can pick and pull anything out of the budget and take a vote on it, absolutely.
Look, I think the bottom line is this is the worst-case scenario number that you guys seem to have come
Yeah.
up with. So as we have the money there, we clearly need some new software. And so as we move forward, you know, we have this money allotted.
Right.
We can, you know, debate, of course, what it's
Sure.
actually gonna cost. We get the real bids in, you know, we go through the companies, and then we can, at least we know we have the money there to deal with it and bring us up to, you know, the new decade in our
Sure.
software.
Okay.
I think you'd be surprised at how many multi-billion-dollar companies use 10-year-old software and manage a lot through Excel. So I'm not saying it's ideal, but for a,
Look at Excel. I mean, look at Windows. XP.
Yeah, that's true. I can name a couple that I've either worked at or worked with that are in that boat. So, not saying that means we can't do it, but things like it's fully depreciated, that's fine. I mean, doesn't matter, right? That we still have to spend $400,000 of cash next year if we're going to make the decision to acquire this. So,
Well, what are some of the
This is
things
a
we're
tough
talking about? We're talking about upgrading the way that we do water bills, right? This is all part of
Online
that.
bill payment processing, there's all kinds of services that we'll be able to add and synergy between other departments and payroll. We still fill out manual pay times. I sign off on people's timesheets every 2 weeks. It's
Right.
crazy.
So it's not just a matter of.
Can't even
I
pass
want-
along
I
that
want
kind of
the
stuff,
latest
so.
Software for software's sake. It's what new elements are we gonna
Right.
get from this that will be.
and so that's why I asked earlier, just kind of for
Sure.
a broad business case, right? Not down to every nit and
these
nat,
are-
but what are the 10 things it'll provide for us that?
These
make
are
sense
discussions
for
I
us?
had with Eric, and I assumed maybe we would kick the can down the road till 2016 when he left, but I had several conversations with Lisa, and we evaluated what we had, and we will make the case to put it in 2015. I mean, we can come back and deliberate about it further before then, or we can leave it in the budget and then make that case more formally with more data at that time. Okay? Move on, all right. Okay, capital outlay. I did mention the council chambers reservations, and I apologize, this PDF is probably not overly legible, but that's the room you're sitting in right now. Those lines on the bottom are these walls over here. We've already spent some money in AV enhancements. There are some additional AV enhancements, and basically building out a partition for the LCTV crew and having their privacy and being able to lock that room because we've had some issues with equipment being tampered with. And it'll allow us to kind of clean up some of this brick, kind of finishes the walls in here, and then also replaces all the carpet in here.
And is this what's listed as the LCTV update?
Yes.
That was one, okay, that's one of my questions.
Yeah. All right. This is just some pictures of the roof in this building. We are actually bringing this up for discussion at Central Square tomorrow morning in regards to what we want to do and how to, make the appropriate fixes in regards to this building's roof. And we did have, we did commission an architect to take a look at, making proposals and getting numbers, and the overall fix for the building was estimated at over $220,000 for,
When was the last time the roof was done?
off the top of my head. I couldn't-
1980.
What?
You didn't get a new roof, 1980.
We just got it fixed?
Oh, it's when we put the new roof on.
Oh, okay. So it's been a while.
See, that's why Ron can't leave. He's a warehouse of information.
So, so we have that in there. Obviously, we do replacements of squad cars. We use federal seizure funds and capital funds to produce that. The police radio system is having some challenges as of late, and we need to get that fixed, so that's in here.
One quick question.
Wait, you know what? Can I speak to that? That is so important.
Yeah.
Because we have dead zones in this. I know you'll probably speak
Chief's
to this,
made a real
Chief,
good
but
case for it, so
there's
it's in
dead
there.
zones. You got police officers chasing people, and they go into certain areas, and they can't communicate with the rest of the officers. So I can't support that more.
I got one question. How much money do we take in from federal seizures?
A year?
Yeah.
It varies, but over 100,000 a year.
And do we expect it to go
How
up
much
with
of that is,
CITGO?
how much of that is cash seized?
Well, it's all cash.
Cash seized?
Yes.
Is this, because there was just 2 articles on this, and there's been a story on 60 Minutes and other people about the practices of police seizures, whereas if somebody is carrying cash and it's seized and there is no conviction, they still keep the money. Does that happen here?
This is all federal seizure money through the DEA, through our officers
Right,
signed
but
with DEA.
it all is, but we're in partnership with that.
Yeah, I would imagine, yes.
We're budgeting for $200,000 of revenue coming from federal seizures for the next year. And if you look at the last couple of years, it was about 244, 245.
Yeah, but my point is this, it's great for the city, but there are several states that have curtailed this, where you have departments that go in, I mean, one southern state, the county sheriff was asked, who do they stop? And the guy goes, well, if they're not speeding, they're probably suspicious. So the problem is that people are taking, under this federal seizure program, are taking this money, and they'll go in with a dog and sniff for drugs or something, and the dog starts barking. Well, then they seize the money and claim it's drugs, but then there's no conviction, and they still keep the money.
But they are,
What does that have to?
they are allowed a hearing. They are,
Except that there's cities and towns that have stopped this practice.
That doesn't, it's not happening here. So the argument
said we
is,
took in $250,000.
makes no sense right now.
Yeah, but it all comes from a collective that is the federal drug seizure money. It's not $100,000.
But Terry answered my point. The point is, if there's no conviction, they keep the money.
Well, the point is they leave. They don't wait to get charged. They don't wait to get convicted. They're gone.
That's not what the article, I think it was in the Washington Post said.
You know where our police go to get this money?
Am I getting the insinuation that this is what Lockport does? Is we pull
No, I'm
people
asking.
their
Yeah,
cash?
no. That's a good question.
I'm asking.
All right.
And I mean, because I think that people have asked about this, and it's one thing, the program started in the 80s, and it has to be in coordination with the federal government for these seizures to happen. And because they happen, I don't know if it's under RICO or what it's under, but they take the money, and if there's no conviction, they keep the money. And the cases are this, where people have been transferring money because, for whatever reason, they get stopped by the police and say they've got a lot of money, they're going to buy a car or whatever, and the cops go, well, that's drug money, I'm gonna seize it. They never got it
I
back.
still don't understand your
That-
point.
Okay, that horse has been beat now for about the last 10 minutes. We get it. It has nothing to do with our budget.
Yeah.
Kelly,
I have a question regarding federal seizures, because you're saying that the revenue is about 200,000. However, there's federal seizure expenses, and in the 2015 budget, the federal seizure expenses is up 190,000. What entails?
it's for the radio system.
For this stuff.
This is 160 of it is the.
For the radio and the cars.
Okay,
So we're allowed to use their funds to buy some of our capital equipment. And then there is a fund balance with the federal seizure funds.
so we take their profits, but we're paying the 190.
So
yeah.
whatever we don't use of that money will roll over into a restricted amount on our fund balance. Because that money can only be used for certain things, it's restricted, and it is restricted, it keeps restricted within our city's fund balance. So the financial statements, when the auditors come, will actually show that restriction on there. So we have to identify when we're using federal seizure money and what it was for, because there's very few things that we can even use that money for. So these are things that the police department has identified, is a new radio system and squad cars. And if we didn't use federal seizure money for it, it would be coming out of the general fund to be able to support these needs.
Well, but the federal seizure revenue only shows 200,000.
Right, so there's some actual money that has been rolling over for a few years. I believe that fund
Okay.
balance, and please don't quote me on this because I've looked at it very quickly, but I thought they had at least a $300,000 fund balance from the last fiscal year. At least.
More.
Is it more than that? That's just a quick
Okay,
guess.
thank you.
We do have, there was a prior agreement in regards to the Norton Building with ComEd in regards to these transformers that we're going to be doing some updates on, and that's about a $40,000 fix, so we're pretty much contractually obligated for that, so that's in the budget.
There's my business just had LED lights put in the entire facility. We didn't have to pay a dime. There's a ComEd fund for that.
That's what this is.
Okay.
The LED lights, we have to pay for the lights first and then submit our paperwork.
ComEd paid for everything.
Well, I'm working with a consultant in the DCO grant process, and we're proposing lights at the public works facilities, the sewer treatment plant, and Central Square. And there is a net cost to us at about $15,000 to retrofit the whole city, and then the grant process pays us back most of that money.
Okay.
It's not 100%, but we can go over that as the grant process comes together and see what we can get, but I thought it was worth doing, so. Also, we still have some trucks to buy. The Vectra truck, I don't know if you recall, we did discuss this, briefly last year. We pushed it off. We're trying to get the most life as we can out of that vehicle. It's an expensive truck, to the point where the Public Works wanted to buy 2 new snowplow trucks, and I've asked them to push one of those off and get as much life as we can out of the other one. So we do have two requests, or requests for 2 trucks. One is the Vectra. It's a sewer operating vacuum truck, and the other one would be another snowplow. And then a couple of pickup trucks for the water and sewer department. And we have to repaint the digester lid. You can see a picture of it there. It's rusting. It's starting to decay. If we don't take care of it soon, it's going to make us buy a new lid, which is a lot more expensive. And then we continue to keep up with their influent pumps with the treatment facilities. There will be 3 new one of these. And we've got capital projects, so I'm going to give it back to Lisa, unless there's any other questions. Okay.
So the capital projects we have are split between road projects at about $5.5 million and water and sewer projects at $5.3 million. These are in line with the capital improvement plan that was passed earlier this year. So this details out. So from MFT funds, this is the part I talked to you about that needs to be a local match for federal grants. Reed Street, Briggs Division, Farrell Streets, Garfield Street, and then a sidewalk on Illinois 7. There's some reconstruction on 4th Street, Summit and Runyon Street, Hamilton Street and Hamilton Street parking facility. Ben, did you want to talk about that?
Oh, yes, thank you. We've discussed the Hamilton parking lot facility. We are having, we're going to be having some community meetings with the building owners. We have some loose estimates in regards to the overall cost of that, of being about $750,000 investment. We think it's important to the downtown and the community as we unroll the IDOT project on State Street with construction, that it's important to have additional parking for those downtown businesses before that occurs. And so we're kind of on a full court press here to try to get this accomplished in 2015.
Would a new water main for the east side of State Street be incorporated in this?
The state, not in the Hamilton Street plan, but within the State Street reconstruction project, yes, we are trying to do some work with them.
So
while it's torn up, we can replace some water mains,
okay.
if that's what you're asking.
So the water main for the buildings is going to be on State Street. It's not going to be in the alley.
Yeah.
And that's what, like 2017, that one?
They may try to pull it up, but we think it's 2017.
Can I ask about there was a line item for vault filling for 70,000?
Yes, I have, that's
Okay.
on this next slide right here. So there's some reconstruction, street reconstruction projects at 17th and Hamilton and 7th and Washington Streets, some resurfacing at Abbey Glen. There's some miscellaneous downtown streets and lots, including aisle 7. And then there's some improvements to the sidewalk programs in various locations, including some downtown vault fill. So there was, I think, $40,000 put in for vault fill for the
70.
Might have been 70, I think.
Said 70, yeah.
I thought it was 40, but.
The, and that's also in concert with this IDOT project, because we're trying to get those done. Those are the only vaults existing outside of the current proposal with IDOT, because IDOT has agreed to
okay,
fill
'cause
those
that's
on
what I
their
was
expense
gonna
and their
ask
dime.
about, yeah.
We will also have expenses at that time when that project rolls out. It could be about $275,000 to move street lighting and things like that. But overall, with them replacing, adding a turn lane, keeping the parking, redoing all the sidewalks, and filling all the vaults, it's gonna be a great deal for us. So we wanted to kind of get ahead of filling the other vaults. So when the IDOT project is done, we won't have any concerns with any vaults in downtown anymore. So that's a big deal.
There's some storm sewer improvements projected here, 3rd and Summit Streets and 17th and Lawrence. And then on the water side, water main replacement at 4th Street, construction of a Patty Cakes lift station, water main replacement at
Beamy.
Beamy. Gosh, I don't know why it just doesn't look. Beamy and State Street, that's for phase 1 and 2. Some reconstruction at Summit and Runyon, 17th and Hamilton, 7th and Washington. Some sewer lining improvements, Brick Street water main replacement, Bonnie Bray phosphorus removal, and Well 9 iron removal. It's a lot of projects. I wish the engineering part went well. So this slide here just, it shows you what the approximate fund balance is, what we're expecting after the use of some of these, projects for the capital and what they're gonna look like. And within all those funds, except for the TIF, we are within the prescribed limitations of in the general fund, 4 months of operating expenses. In the water and sewer fund, it's 25% of operating expenses. So we're well within our limits to be able to do all these projects and still not go below the fund balance that we have set out for the city to maintain.
I think the general fund is about seven or 8 months worth is what will be our balance, so that's almost double what our policy says, and I'm not sure about the percentages on the water sewer, but.
Will this
they're a little
budget
tight.
rate, are you proposing that the levy has to be raised?
Well, so the city has the ability to capture new property, and it always wants to do that portion, to be able to get the increase in any type of EAV that's out there, and increase up to the CPI, which is 1.5%. So when we propose a levy, we want to propose it high enough to capture all that new property, so there will be an increase, but it won't be an increase in excess of that 1.5% of the CPI. That's our limitation.
Okay.
What is the CPI?
1.5%.
So, this might be technical, but, or kind of minute, but is it new additional EAV plus 1.5, right? It's not capped by 1.5. So what's the cumulative?
Always get your new property, so your
Yep.
levy, when you levy, you always have to levy for more than that 1.5%. We'll
Yep.
talk about this more when we get into the levy presentation in a couple of weeks.
Oh, we were jumping ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna have a whole presentation for that coming up.
Yeah, but
So then the net is more than that.
raising the levy, that's my question.
Yes, I will come to you to raise a levy for what we're allowed, which is the 1.5% of the CPI. And then it will capture any new property into the city as well.
So you basically have one shot to do that per year.
Right.
Otherwise, you
We've
lose.
historically done
So
that
any
for
new
years,
business
yeah.
that comes in or new development, if you don't capture it then. But the overall effect is basically your tax bill pretty much stays the same. It's just bigger because you're collecting that new revenue from the other businesses.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I haven't seen that on my taxes.
So, can I state that a little bit differently? If we increased our levy only for new growth, and all else is equal, which is not the case, right? But if EAV was equal, if all else was equal, to the city of Lockport, people's payments actually wouldn't change, but the Lockport would make more money because there are additional bodies paying in. Now, all else is not equal, EAV moves, there's a lot going on. That's the difference. There's a, these new additional properties are paying into the system where nobody else is touched, but then there's also a levy increase to existing bodies as well, right? Yeah.
Yes, and the EAV has actually been declining here in town, and that's happening not just here, it's happening all over, but the value, the assessors are going back and revaluing the property lower than they did in years past. So the tax
even if-
rate will change,
Yep.
because if you want to keep your property taxes at that same dollar amount, you have to increase your rate, because they've decreased their EAV.
So,
Keep up with it.
so what happens is that the levy goes up, and even though the value of your property went down, you're still paying the same amount of taxes.
Exactly.
That's the part that
If it
people
all
don't like.
happened pro rata, basically.
Right.
If you go up and I go down, then there's a difference. But if everybody went down 10%, nothing changed, everybody would still pay the same rate. The same amount.
One of the county employees told a crowd that I was sitting in one time that said the county still needs X amount of money, no matter if your property value goes down or not.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
they have
all
the
taxes.
right
We
to
would
do
have
that.
to cut
I would
expenses
like
to
you
match
to
that if we didn't
explain,
do
if
it.
you can, when you do the presentation for the levy, how it is that you feel you don't capture new growth. Don't you capture that at any rate in the following tax year, when they're there for the whole year? I mean, you can't just not be taxed, because they have to be taxed.
But if we don't
It's gonna be a math lesson.
If we don't levy appropriately in the amount that we're requesting, then they will not tax that new property, because we will have limited ourselves. So it's a very complicated animal, and I was just rehashing for myself what I did years ago when I was doing the levies, to bring it all back up in memory, but it is a very complicated formula. It takes a lot of time to prepare that levy and to prepare it accurately, because if you do not prepare your levy correctly, you will lose that revenue forever.
Right, because basically, and correct me if I'm wrong then, Lisa, if you get new growth and it brings in, let's say our levy is $10 million, right? And a new company comes in that it's large enough where it's gonna pay $1 million new dollars added to that. If you don't increase the levy, what'll happen is everyone's tax bill will go down, which is nice, but it's the same amount of money that goes on forever. So people's tax bill goes down, which is good news. But every time somebody new comes in, the goal is, we've got $60 million or $48 million worth of capital improvement projects. The only way we're actually going to get those new businesses to actually make an impact to help with those projects is to increase the levy, so that our tax bill, yes, stays the same, but at least we're able to capture that new growth and have it make meaningful impact to what we're doing. Otherwise, all this, industrial growth that we're talking about earlier, it's like, oh, that'd be nice if we could spread the love around. It's like, there's not gonna be any new love unless you increase the levy to capture it.
You are correct. And one thing that I did point out is, and people don't always realize this, the city's portion is approximately 9% of your tax bill. It's a very, very small portion of the tax bill. So whatever we're doing here doesn't mean that all these other taxing bodies aren't doing it as well. So even if we were to decrease our levy because we didn't levy appropriately, that doesn't mean that anybody would see that net change in their tax bill, because everybody else went and took that increase.
I think that's the concern with people, is that the other taxing bodies are not exercising any kind of restraint at all.
Right, and
They're going right up to the limit at 5% a year, and that was only capped because of the legislature. It used to go up higher, and the problem is that house values are going down. Real income is still not going up. So when people look at that, they look at government saying, wow, I wish I could just levy and raise my income to pay for things, but they can't do that. That's why we have to be good stewards of the public money.
Yeah, and I think we have been. I think, we've been increasing the levy to capture new growth is how we get those folks to actually make an impact when they come here and bring their business here to the city. And yeah, if the city, we get blamed for everything. If the fire department raises their levy, I think it's us. So it's like, you can't escape that, that's just life in the big chair. But, yeah, the reality is we're 9% of the tax bill. Everybody thinks we're 100%, so, yeah.
I have comments. I have a couple of comments, and I made these as I was going through it. First, I think that this is just another benefit of having the CIP. I mean, we were looking at, I don't know what level of detail everybody went through, but as we're looking at millions of dollar line items, I literally took out the CIP and was going, oh, okay, you know, I think one of them I saw off at like $40,000. Other than that, I was able to trace across the CIP. Because, you know, for the public, last year we had to sit down in kind of private sessions and have the budget explained to us. Just like, where are all these dollars coming from? This year, this is it. I mean, we're doing it publicly, which I like for transparency purposes. Not that there was anything, you know, wrong with the approach last year, but this is how we're discussing the budget. We're talking about whether we want line items in there or not, and I think that's fantastic. I think the CIP helps a lot, and that's a public document as well. You guys can all see what the projects are. They were stated, but it makes it a lot easier for us. So another example of, I think, a good win with the CIP that was put together by Amy and other members of staff. With that, I also wonder, and I probably know the answer to this, but between some of the expenses we have, and I think that, you know, we are still, we seem to be very conservative in our budgeting. Every year we don't spend what we say we're gonna spend. I think we make a little more than we say we're gonna make. We have fund balances above what we wanna have, which is all good, right? I'm not trying to be ultra aggressive here, but do we have projects that we could bring in from 2016 that are ready? Or maybe it's just we can start taking on some pre-consulting or pre-engineering for some of them, but, you know, maybe a prioritized list or a couple of projects that say, I don't want to pick on accounting software and go back to that, but if we didn't do accounting software, we could do X this year. And I think that, you know, maybe a small backup list, not go rehash anything big, but one or two on the CIP that could be close to ready that we could have in our back pocket.
Amy has all that.
I think some of that, Jason, quite frankly, is with the projects that are on that list, it's about all we can manage.
Well, and that's what I said, is I don't know if we can
Right.
even manage anything else.
I mean, one of the reasons I asked to have that, you know, part-time person come on is just to physically go around and see what's going on with the project. How many times have we seen a project sitting there for 2 weeks, not knowing what's going on? And having somebody on staff who's a project manager who goes around, physically looks at these things. I mean, even, you know, now we have difficulty with it. As the CIP really kicks in, it's gonna be that much more. And so, yeah, we're about what we can manage. And I'm speaking for you, Amy, but I think that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and you're right. The goal is to get these projects engineered, sitting on the shelf and ready to go, so that when we do have additional funds, we can pull another project off the shelf and get it built. I don't think we're gonna be at that point this year. Even if we did have projects pre-engineered and ready to go, the mayor's correct. We're kind of at our limit this year. I mean, we have a ton of stuff going on, and I don't think that we could even handle another project, even if we could. The fact of the matter is there's probably going to be projects that we budgeted for this year that are not going to go next year, either because the plans don't get done in time or because they don't get bid and awarded and stuff in time. I hope there's not. I hope we get everything done, but the fact is that there's probably going to be at least one project that doesn't go.
We have an example, right, coming up where you're taking a project that, I can't remember, it was the Patty Cakes lift station or something that's being pushed
Moved up.
off, but,
To offset
but
the
because the
vending.
other one can't be ready to go, and then that'll go a little later. So she's got all that, you know,
And I started this by saying we may not be possible, but that's why I was asking.
but that's what she does, and
No, I
that's a
know,
good
but
thing.
if there was any of the engineering work,
But
but.
in the subsequent years, in 2016, 2017, the goal is to have a bunch of projects sitting there ready to go so that we can. And I think we will be able to do that in subsequent years. You will see over the next couple of months, I will be coming, I'm coming to you this week with another engineering proposal. I will be coming almost every single meeting with at least one or two engineering proposals because we have to get these projects in design. That's why we have so much money in the budget this year for engineering, because we have to get them going, we have to get the plans ready, we have to get them, so that we can be in that position to pull them off the shelf and get them constructed early if we have the additional funds.
Great. Then just a couple more specific points, and Lisa, if you don't know this off the top of your head, that's fine, but snow and ice removal, it looks like it's up 45% over previous years. I know Joe just came and told us we got a great deal on salt. So do we know, am I reading that wrong? Is there something that's driving
You talking
that?
about the actual materials or overtime?
It wasn't labeled as overtime.
It's so nice, yes, it is, the amount that the department had submitted was greater, and Joe really didn't indicate to me why.
Okay.
Looking at it being a greater cost, I'm not sure if it was because we had such a snowfall.
Yeah, I think we used up a lot of our reserves, and we need to buy more than I'm just good, because
That's what it was. We had a bad winter. The
Yeah,
previous
we-
year,
yeah, we
before
had tons
that,
of salt,
it hardly
but-
snowed, so we didn't have to purchase the additional salt.
Well, and there, you
But
know,
the
I don't.
cost did go up for salt,
I
too,
thought
so-
that we still bought
Because
everything.
that's what I was gonna say, we're required to
A certain
buy
amount.
away,
Yeah.
We are, right.
within a range at least.
And I don't know this for sure, but if this is why the number is reflected that way. But I mean, I have asked Joe to look at ways to remove snow into downtown because it becomes very burdensome when there's just no place to put the snow. And so some of that cost might be reflected in that. I might have to check.
And like I said, that's probably not an answer for today, but just kind of circle back with Joe and make sure that you're comfortable that makes sense. Ben and I talked about the HR, just as a general thought, I'm a little hesitant to add head count, although I do understand some of the needs that he described. So I think that going through the audit, as Ben said, and then kind of addressing what the needs are and figuring out how to do it makes sense. I kind of toe the fence a little bit on headcount in that I'm very hesitant to add headcount because that's a perpetual cost for us. But I always want to treat our employees, you know, as fair as we can. On that note, and I know this is always a tough subject and much debate, but 2% raises, personally, I'd like to see that slightly higher, but that's probably been discussed.
I agree with Jason on headcount. The only problem with public employees is that we have them forever. Because we have their pensions, we have their, salaries, pensions, healthcare and everything. They're very expensive. And any time that we can, job out or do something like that, I mean, I'm all for, so.
If I can just talk a little bit about the increases, yes, I would love to give a lot more each year too, but we also coming into a negotiation period with the laborers union, so we try to toe the line where we can. We are certainly open to the council's discretion if they want to bestow more money to the employees. I'm sure there would be no complaints from the employees.
I think you know my thoughts, nothing crazy, but.
And the CIP
It's
does
above
have.
the CIP.
I'm sorry?
CPI?
1.5, the CPI is 1.5. We're offering 2% raises. You're still coming ahead.
Entirely a policy decision up to you fine 9 folks.
So that's another one, I
Yeah, the
think
current
we get
recommendation
to this
is
a
at
lot,
2%.
but there's different opinions.
Yep.
And then just lastly, Lisa, I think you've been here a week and a half or something at this point. This has been very impressive. Both I think the budget we have here, I'm pretty detailed. This is what I do, so that's what, I'm not trying to grill Lisa, but this is 20-something pages of a budget, and it's really good. The fact that I only have 3 or 4 questions or things that I want follow-up on, I think is really high quality. I think your presentation tonight was excellent as well. So I know it's more than one person. It was Eric before he left, it's Ben, it's all the directors. But I think city staff as a whole should be proud of how this is coming together. I mean, it doesn't get approved for 2 more months, and I think it's in really good shape already. There'll be some tweaks, but I think this is high quality for sure.
Thank you. And you asked about some flexibility maybe with funding at the end of the year, and I think, in my first year, I made a lot of trying to make progress with the department heads and how they budget, and we've slimmed down the way they ask for funds, and I asked them to own their budgets, and some of them maybe didn't quite understand what I meant by that in the first time, but by now they understand that, we need to budget for what we can spend and handle and manage, and we don't want to budget for more than that. Because it could take money away from other projects. So we could do other things at the end of the year if there's fund balance left over or projects don't get done. It could be engineering ready projects. It could be a large buy down on the pension obligations is something we've considered before. It would require a budget amendment to do something like that, but that's certainly something that we could bring to the council in the future if we have leftover funding. So other than that, I think. If there's any other questions? Okay.
Great job, Lisa, thanks. Echo Jason's sentiments about this. All right. Dun-dun-dun. keep moving along. Pam, what do you got going on?
Yes, I just wanted to give the council a verbal update on what happened at the ICSC last week. As you all are aware, the ICSC is a networking event that took place in Chicago last week. And it's basically myself, the mayor, Ben, and Jack. We attended, and the purpose of our attendance was to get Lockwood on the radar of many retailers and restaurants that we could. We created binders that we all had that provided consistent information, and much of that information was also on the USB business cards that I showed you prior to the event, in which we added information about our customized demographics, traffic counts, and other such information that was applicable to that. Prior to the event, we reached out to 23 brokers representing various restaurants and retailers, many of which were actually on the retail match list that the retail coach had generated for us. We were able to establish 6 meetings, which was quite an accomplishment considering in the prior year we really didn't have many. And some of the meetings were with a couple of our local brokers, as well as some of the restaurants and retailers that we were kind of hoping to target. In addition, we visited some key broker booths. So for those who didn't respond in that group of 23 and who were in attendance, we hunted them down, and we at least were able to invite them to the broker event that's taking place next week, as well as able to leave off some of the USB business cards so that they would have an idea of what Lockwood had to offer. We also visited some retailers in what they refer to as Retailer Row. And again, it was to meet with them, leave our information, and just let them know that we're here and that we're anxious and aggressively searching for new businesses to come to our town. We also created an available commercial properties summary table and map, which is now on the website as well. But it actually was received very well by several of the retailers and restaurants that we met with. We also, our booth resulted in many brokers just stopping by. They were very impressed when they did see our customized retail trade area. And then again, we were able to invite them to the brokers event next week, as well as give them information on the US. And I have to say, those USB business cards were a real hit. I had some people that were from other communities that were stopping by just to see what they were all about. And when we did give them out to brokers and developers, they were really impressed at how we were communicating.
I got a couple at the IML conference, too, from other.
Yeah, and I think we were one of the only, I mean, not that we stopped at every booth, but the different municipalities of people that I knew, and just in walking by, and I didn't see too many of them.
No, ours are very attractive with the gold, yeah.
Absolutely. As a follow-up, we have sent out 63 follow-up invites to the brokers event. Some of them were repeats from the people that we had already hand-delivered them to at the ICSC. But we just want to drive home the point that some of these brokers that represent the retailer match list, restaurants or retailers, we really just want to drive home to them that we want them in our community and that we can provide them with the demographic information that they need. And then lastly, we also encountered several different restaurant groups that rely a lot on franchising. And so what we asked them about was, how do we go about conveying to the public in Lockport and near to Lockport. So we're going to start efforts to just trying to convey that, for some of these businesses that we'd like to see here, it's really important to have a franchisee available, and hopefully encourage some people who maybe thought about it and never knew where to go or what to do, to be able to consider pursuing that avenue. So overall, we feel it was very successful. Again, it's a networking opportunity. I think we definitely got the Lockport name out there. And in working with the retail coach, they are completing another round of outreach, an initiative. Again, some of the people that we visited at ICSC are also on their list, so they'll be reaching out to them again. And so we're feeling very confident that we will see some good things soon.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, when we go around and we talk to the brokers, and all the information that we've gathered now via the retail coach and with Pam and putting this stuff together, I mean, it's even an eye-opener, quite frankly, for some of us. I mean, you know, you ask a resident, what do you think the median household income is in our trade area? You know, most people are, I don't know, 50, 60. It's actually 93,000. And so, you know, having that kind of information is a big deal. And being able to go to these brokers, talk about our trade area, talk about commute times, they had raised eyebrows. I mean, this was a lot of news to them. We still have to overcome some of the stereotypes of this being the black hole, and you know, we still have a lot of challenges. You know, the challenges that we have, you know, are, you know, Romeoville, New Lenox, they were able to get their big boxes in before the recession hit. When they had a Home Depot, when they had Target was built, when they had those big boxes put in before the recession happened, you know, the challenge we face now is a lot of these businesses don't want to go in unless there already is something there. And so that's why when we all, like, you know, get frustrated when we watch Buffalo Wild Wings go to New Lenox, it's like, what the heck? It's like, well, it's because they've already put in, you know, before the recession, the Home Depot and everything that's sitting there. So, you know, some of the things that we're trying to get these guys to see differently too is that, look, we already have an anchor. It's called Walmart and Jewel. And this property is contiguous to those things. And so just getting these guys to see it differently is, you know, what we're there for. Because they don't necessarily do the homework. They go to the easy wins. And so they're not going to sit there and do the homework about Lockport when an easy win is in another town. So that's what we're there for, was to make sure we put this information in front of them and continue to build the relationships. I was out today on a meeting today with a big broker, and, you know, like Pam says, we set up something for the 23rd. We just have to continue to be aggressive. And, you know, we're probably going to see some things go vertical next spring. There'll be some people coming before planning department for some outlot buildings here coming up. So there will be some movement. But, you know, we're just going to continue to drive it. That's all we have to do. Just keep putting our face out there, showing them this information. And good job, Ben, Pam, and Jack at the conference. You guys, there's a lot of work to go there and do those things. So thank you. All right, Amy, what do you got?
Okay, I have 2 items on the agenda tonight for Committee of the Whole. The first is the Briggs Street water main replacement recommendation for selection of consultant. During the formulation of the capital improvement project, we had Strand evaluate our water system and recommend the most the biggest priority water main replacements. This Briggs Street replacement was not the highest priority on the list. However, over the next couple of years, we're going to be adding sidewalk and bike path on Briggs Street as part of an ITEP project. And in order to be able to get the water main in the ground prior to this, we need to pull this project up ahead and make sure that it's constructed hopefully in concurrence with that project. I would like to be able to let this project just right before the Briggs Street, the ITEP project, so that we can save on restoration costs and just put the water main in and then let the sidewalk and bike path project take care of all of the restoration for this. So that's the goal. This will come to the next city council meeting for approval, but we're recommending that the city enter into an agreement with Strand Associates for the plans and specifications for the Briggs Street water main replacement in the amount of $35,900.
Questions?
Yeah, not really questions, just to say that I'm really glad to see this coming, because you have pointed out that you've had several water main breaks there on Briggs. I know that because it's right next to our subdivision, and all these water main breaks and digging has also cost the city to repair our sprinkler systems, which gets destroyed when they, you know, go to, so it would be wonderful just to have that fixed and to eliminate all that extra cost. to the city as well as refixing water main. I mean, that thing's must have broken 5 times in the last couple of years.
Yeah. The city is also looking at a new well site location in that part of town, which will put another stressor on this water main, which makes another important case for replacing it at this time.
Where are you looking to put a well out there?
It is south of Lago Vista, I believe. Oh, yeah, you're still here.
There's 3 different, Chris, there's 3 different properties. One is just south of Lago Vista in an area there. One is on Peachtree. There's some open outlot area that might be available there. Those are the 2 most viable, so, and right now, the third location is slipping my mind, but they're all in that Bridge Street corridor there.
One of the challenges, we were trying to add another well on the north end, but we're running into dragonfly issues, and so we're trying to look a little other location. It would be less problematic to build a water well.
This is has nothing to do with the District 92 issue?
No, that's
Okay.
the phosphorus removal and iron removal facility.
No, it's in a new well or something, part of that.
It's an improvement to an existing well, number 9. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, that's good. Is this something we want to put on for an action item? Is that what you're seeking?
Mhm.
Everyone good with that?
Consent?
Consent.
Everybody all right with consent?
Yes.
We can vote on
Sure.
everything, but that's fine. Put on consent.
The next item I have is a Canal Days detour. We do this every year. We pass a resolution stating the days that we're going to close down State Street for the Canal Day celebration. This year I wanted to do it a little bit earlier because it seemed like it was taking IDOT forever to get back with us, get the permit back to us, and we just barely got it in time to get the traffic control and protection set up for last year. So rather than start this in February, we're going to start it in October. So this is just a resolution that we have to pass stating the days of the event and the times that we are closing down the street for the celebration so that we can submit this to IDOT for our permit.
Consent. Everybody good with consent?
Yep.
Very good. Thanks, Amy. All right, any new business? All good? Open floor comments? All good? All right.
A quick break?
Yeah, let's take 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do council. Yeah.
Here.
We still have 8 present
Oh, right.
at 9:45 PM.
Oh, mercy. Well, one thing I want to do, I'd like to jump ahead to the city attorney so we can get Mr. Small out of here. Ron, can we go right to the vote here?
Right, this is resolution number 14088 under A2. This is resolution authorizing execution of an annexation agreement between Lockport Investments LLC and the city of Lockport.
Second.
Okay, Alderman Turner, second by Alderman Tedeschi. Do we need to vote on this, or can we do it?
Yeah, you should.
We'll vote on it. Roll call?
Coretta?
Yes.
Marinowski?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Colorelli?
Yes.
And Capadona.
Yes.
And the next action is ordinance 14031 is an ordinance annexing the property, rezoning the property. In your packet tonight is an amended 0431. And the only difference is there was as a complement to the annexation of 2 parcels of property, one to be zoned M1, the other one to be zoned R1. There was another parcel of property that's presently in the city that was zoned estate residential and now goes to R1. That was not included in your packet that was emailed to you. This one has that. So that's the only change.
So moved.
Alderman Turner, a second.
Second.
Alderman Vandermeer. Have a roll call, please.
Coretta?
Yes.
Marinowski?
Yes.
Vandermeer.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Colorelli.
Yes.
Capitano.
Yes.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, thanks, Ron. All right, James.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for moving us up.
All right, let's roll back. Can I have a motion to have the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Turner, second by Alderman Deskin, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on the consent tonight, we have, with Jack bringing in water, so we're not all done. We have the regular city council meeting minutes from October 1st, committee of the whole meeting minutes from October 1st. We have payroll period ending September 28th, approval of bills. There's the Bonnie Gray STP phosphorus removal, which was 14,088 and 1888 for 88A. And then number 6 was the 2014 monthly meeting calendar. So can I have a motion to pass consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, Alderman Colorelli, seconded by Alderman Vandermeer, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
We need to make an appointment here for the,
I'm good.
police pension. You know, with the removal of, not removal, with the,
Expiration.
yes, the exit of, Mr. Brown, who, was on the police pension board. We told Lisa that's also part of her job description, so we didn't know that was coming, but, I'd like a motion to appoint our finance
So moved.
director.
Second.
Okay, Alderman Turner, seconded by Alderman Smith, all in favor?
Aye.
I do have an executive session, yes, so that's something we've got going on for personnel. And then, Alex, what do you got?
Motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes from October 1st, 2014.
So moved.
As presented.
Second.
Sorry.
Yeah, the guy who's in the bathroom. Yeah. Seconded by Alderman Deskin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Ben, oh, yeah, is Ben, you taking this one, or Ron?
It's just to amend the, well, Jack can do it, but it's to amend the
Pyrotechnics.
pyrotechnic contract to, he's changing, he used to be a sole proprietorship, he's changing it to a corporation. That's, and then the only other question is we deleted a section saying that if there was a debate about the contract, the loser would get reasonable attorney's fees, so.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Alderman Turner, seconded by Alderman Vandermeer, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then, we got AT3, Ron?
Let's see, AT3. Where's it? AT3, I think we did AT3.
Oh, we haven't
No,
done that.
that's 92.
No, we did
Well,
8.
District 92, District 92 is an agreement with Ludwig School District for the addition of iron removal to our well site at that area on their school at Gallagher Road. We've come to an agreement as far as putting the extra iron removal apparatus on the well site and also making sure that their stormwater drainage system isn't affected. And also, when we entered into the agreement with District 92, in 2000, they didn't own the property, so they were, in essence, now they do own the property, they're gonna deed the property to us.
So moved.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Second.
Wait till the motion.
Second.
Second, yeah, questions?
Okay. Since this property is in Homer Glen,
That's
why don't,
correct.
why don't they just have Homer Glen's water?
We have an agreement, and they, when they came to the city, we were the city that gave them water and sewer. And we extended that line. And they did pay a good portion of that line. The line started at Farrell and it ended at Gower. And so we, as you know, or maybe not, you don't know, but our FPA extends into a good part of Homer Glen. There are currently citizens of Homer Glen that are using our sewer system. The
No, I didn't know.
Nafros, the banquet hall does that. So we have an obligation, and we charge them for the sewer system and water system in this case.
Oh, okay, because it sounded like we were paying for everything and it wasn't.
No, they are still getting recaptured. They paid, I mean, that, to extend that sewer system was some money.
Okay. And is that well 9 then?
Yes, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I missed the second. Was that Deskin? Okay, thank you. I
All right.
wasn't sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ron, what is next?
So ordinance for the zoning map here.
AT4 is a motion to pass a zoning map amendment for the amendment to the special use permit for Narnia. This is, just deletes that one section of the special use permit, allowing them to transfer the property.
So moved.
Second.
Turner, second by Alderwoman Marianowski. All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next resolution is 14090, which is a resolution amending the annexation agreement because the provisions of the special use permit were incorporated in the annexation agreement, so we're amending that section that pertains to transfer of the property.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Zane, Turner, Marianowski, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, did Amy, is he still here? He didn't-
Okay, my first item on the agenda tonight is, the, hold on. The, 2001 Dodge Ram truck, to be declared surplus. At the last city council meeting, we approved a new vehicle for the engineering department, and this resolution is, just declaring the old vehicle surplus so that we can take it to auction.
So moved.
Turner,
Second.
second by Alderman Deskin, all in favor?
Aye.
Second item on the agenda is for the recommendation of approval of pay estimate number 2 for the Thornton Street intersection improvement project. And I believe we have to go into a Board of Local
Like-
Improvements.
Call a meeting of Board of Local Improvements. There's,
Oh, do I need to do that right now?
yeah.
All right, can I call to order a meeting of the local Board of Improvements?
Well, that means we can all leave.
So moved.
No, you can hand it simultaneously.
Second.
All right, it's been approved, a motion carried by Alderwoman Marianowski, second by Alderman Deskin. Okay, so lay it on me, Ron.
So you want to approve a payout?
Yeah. Pay estimate number 2 in the amount of $178,982.10 to deconstruction.
I make the motion to do that.
So the estimated construction costs of $178,982.
So you're seconding the motion,
Second,
okay.
all right, can I have a roll call?
Well, it's just Denise and I right now.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
Formalities, right?
yes, yes,
Since
yes.
The city council is paying a great deal of money for the general fund. I'd like the city council to approve that too.
So you want
Well,
me
we
to?
will have to.
We will
approve
as soon as we
this
go out of
after.
this session.
This is the Board of Local Improvements first, and then you go to the city council.
Okay, so now a motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
okay? All right, we're back.
Wait, did you vote on it?
Motion
Yes,
by-
All in favor?
vote on it, yes.
I mean, did you vote on their adjournment?
Yeah, we
Oh,
did.
yes.
No, we didn't.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we're back, so we need a motion to verbally,
Oh, my gosh.
estimate number 2 in the amount of $178,980.10.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Don't we need to see the meeting minutes?
Yes, it'd be-
Didn't we already have a
Oh, no,
Now,
Allison,
now we're
all
back
in
in, now
favor?
we're back into the other one.
All
I
right,
missed
so,
the motions.
Yeah, we did have a motion by Alderman,
Deskin.
Deskin and
seconded
Turner.
by
Turner.
Mr.
Denise.
Turner.
Oh, well,
And,
which
we'll do the
motion do you
roll call
want?
vote.
Okay,
Wait.
for everyone.
Right, right.
Everyone's in
Did you finish the Board of Local
Another group left.
Improvement?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I have that one.
Okay.
Okay, Coretta,
Yes.
Marinowski.
Yes.
Vandermeer,
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Colorelli,
Yes.
and Capadona.
Yes.
That was unequivocally
All right,
yes.
hey, that's everything.
Joint meetings don't go too well, huh?
Motion to go into executive session?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion
Executive
to,
session.
I'll make that motion.
No, I did that.
Seconded by Alderman Deskin. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's,
I missed it.
It was Turner and Deskin.
Quite a mouthful when you have to
Senior
say
Terry.
Alder